Recording in progress.
That's right. Yeah. 28 years ago, the owner didn't buy the home, built it. And he put sprinklers and grass and walls.
Now, the question is, where
And
is
you can see it
the,
too. They've taken over part of it.
Where the we just need a board, right?
We just need a walkway. There's supposed to be a street.
We get it in the remember.
Right.
Which I expect we will. The only people that I know aren't gonna be here is Susan and David at the beginning.
I know Mike Lenny's here.
She's gonna be at another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People join.
Yeah. That's- No, he's up there.
Oh, he's up
He's
there.
coming in. Good. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Come in person.
There it is, sorry, we're good.
Okay. Oh, huh? Okay, we have a forum.
Who are you?
Andrea Kelly is on her way.
Okay, we will get started because it's a little bit after 7. Good evening. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Facilities Committee. I'm the Vice Chair, Allison Leary from Ward 1, and I will be your host this evening. And with me at the beginning of the meeting is Council President Mark Laredo from Ward 7. We have Rena Getz from Ward 5. And we have Vicki Danberg from Ward 6. And those are in the room along with our committee clerk, Cassidy. Online, we are joined by committee member Lenny Gentile from Ward 4. And that's it. That's all the committee members that I'm seeing right now. Hopefully a couple more will join us. And we are also joined by our Commissioner of Buildings, Josh Morse, and our COO, Jonathan Yo, and our Deputy DPW Commissioner, Shauna Sullivan. Well, I wanted to ask, when was that fence going to come down around the ponds? No, that's not a docket item. And we are also joined in the room with Andrea Kelly, Councilor at Large from Ward 3. So welcome. And let me get started with our first item. We have a couple of public hearings this evening. Our first item is 25924, Alexander Cogan of 56 Marcellus Drive, Newton, petitioning for a drain extension in Edgefield Road, starting in York Road from a new drain manhole and extended 152 feet northeasterly for the purpose of providing an overflow connection for their on-site drainage system. The petitioner is to pay the entire cost. Is there someone who will be introducing this item?
Counselors, I believe that John Daglian should be in to present this. I'm not sure if he's not promoted yet or not.
We are joined by City Engineer John Daglian, and I've just introduced the item, John, regarding the public hearing for the request of the drain extension of Edgefield Road. If you'd like to just speak about.
Sure.
Thank you.
So this is a by right development, excuse me. They designed a stormwater system for the 100-year storm. But because this property is the low point of the neighborhood, they receive waters from the abutting properties. So to help mitigate the on-site drainage system, an overflow connection was requested to this main on York Road, which is a public way. So the extension would include 150-foot extension going up the Edgefield Road and then turning onto the property where they can tie in. This would allow that excess flow coming in from the neighborhood lots onto their property and into the city drainage system, which would exit to the Charles Road.
Right. Is the city requesting this overflow?
The design needed it because to increase the on-site system, it would be very cost prohibitive. And because the high groundwater table, it didn't make sense to keep expanding the system.
Can I
Okay.
ask what you mean? Can you clarify filing costs for repairing what's the cost?
They didn't provide that in detail, but
I'd like to know. I'm a
So, you know what, we're gonna open that, we'll have a public hearing, and if you don't mind, I'll take, we'll get to your question in just a few minutes. but,
So the one correction that we did request that they were proposing a 6-inch line from the point of connection up to the end of York Road.
okay.
We requested that to be a 12-inch minimum because that's the city standard. And also because of the shallowness of the pipe, we requested either to reduct the line or a concrete pipe. Which I
It's a
believe,
12-inch pipe?
we're requesting a 12-inch pipe.
That's a big pipe.
That's a city standard drain pipe.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee on this? The petitioner? Yeah, I know the homeowner's here.
Yes.
The
Yes.
homeowners are
So,
here.
can I create a little bit of context?
Yes.
So Edgefield Road, that piece of Edgefield Road is unpaved piece, probably, I don't know, 100, maybe 120 feet long. It's right next to this property to be built is probably twice larger than any other house within 300 feet. Okay, so that's why prohibitive cost seems to be a little bit odd comment. Also, the house is virtually on the corner of the street called Larkspur, okay, where there is a line, and that line is much closer than York Road, okay? So, but I also would like to point out that the issue of water is no surprise. It should have been thought about in advance when all the designs were put forward. We get flooded regularly. Every big York Road get flooded. Every other big storm, we have 4-6 inches of water on the street. Okay, so you know, if there's general improvement of storm system, we're really happy about it. But we're kind of wondering that pipe will go all the way across our property from right to left on the street, on the public street, obviously, from pretty far away, while there is
A hookup very, very close to it on Locksburg, right in front of the house.
yeah, so it's like,
So you're asking why isn't,
yeah, we just basically, we were like dumbfounded when we got the letter, why the house, huge house built up there.
On a tiny, tiny plot of land, oversized house, oversized, looking over the houses next to it. On either side of it, very tall and oversized. And just, you know, showering over the whole neighborhood. Well, we're on Quinnipiquin, coming off of Quinnipiquin.
The first thing we see
The
is
first thing you see is the huge house, the construction of it,
at the end of the street,
at the end of the street.
56 Marcellus Drive?
at
No,
12 York Road.
12 York Road,
Okay, I know, I want it to be clarified. Your neighbors?
yes.
Can we get a map that shows us? I want to see a map where it's actually dug, and I'm a neighbor also.
Okay, so there's no petitioner here or or the owner of the property or anyone to speak on their behalf, is that correct? Just wanted to double check. Sorry?
To help answer questions?
Yes.
Alex?
Alex?
Okay.
Well,
No.
there's, yes, at the site.
And the one on
And the one-
Hello?
Yes, hello, Alex?
Yes, that's me.
Are you able to speak on this item?
Yes, I'm one of the owners.
Okay, you're one of the owners, so why don't you talk a little bit about why you're needing this? And there's several neighbors here.
Yeah, no, understandable. So we worked very closely with the city, of course, as well as with some of the neighbors who've been engaged. I mean, in particular is I know that I see Sam Chad and Lawrence Chad. And the particular issue has been that, I mean, house being at the bottom of the hill, there is a potential. And again, I'm not an engineer to talk to it, and probably John can talk a little bit about more. But this is more to prevent and actually help the entire neighborhood of taking the water that's coming down that hill, and you know, making it sure that it goes into the stormwater system. And I think John can actually speak from himself. I mean, I think that's something that we talked multiple times. And this is something that the city was also recommending. So, I mean, I know that somebody have mentioned about the houses and the size, but I'm not sure if that's really what we're focusing on here. I think we're focusing on the fact that the water is coming in. And we want to make sure that, you know, as we are, I mean, I'm a Newton resident as well too, within the area. So I'm very peculiar and understandable of what the issues have been. And we're trying to prevent the extra water that's would be coming potential in the neighborhood and diverting it into the stormwater system.
Tom, did this water become an issue after the new home was built on top
I'm
of?
sorry?
Did this become a major issue after?
No, I mean, there's been an issue within the area since 2017. Again, that's going back to between the previous owner and what we have inherited. And we, of course, we weren't really aware of that, but irrelevant to that. But one of our goals, of course, is to make sure that, you know, we solve the problems, we don't create them or we don't expand them.
Okay,
If I could go back to the question that was asked about Larkspur Road.
yes, please.
The exact connection was made, that the applicant had to pump uphill to that drain main.
Larkspur is downhill. Larkspur is,
It's going.
Yeah, and again, the idea of going uphill versus downhill, I mean, one of the things you wanna use the basic physics, and I think that's the best way to approach the problems. You don't want to be relying on pumps that can fail, and if the pumps are there, you have a generator that can also fail. So we're really building a system that's should be sustainable without too much intervention. Just, you know, the basic. I mean, again, of course, you have to clean the you know, the pipes, or you have to, you know, whatever the system you put in place, you have to make sure that you maintain it. But this is a more of a minimum maintenance to the you know, to the future owners and for the residents as well too.
it's my understanding that the house.
You know what, we're gonna open the public hearing shortly, but we haven't opened it quite yet, but we will give you a chance to speak. I just wanna get some of the facts out first. And can we get a map put up of that? Or does someone wanna share their screen?
Well, it's coming from the document, it's coming from the engineering.
On page 2,
Yeah.
in the memo, which
Yeah.
is the shot screen of the site.
Right.
Okay, that might be helpful for us to look at. I'm just curious about what happened to all our efforts to keep stormwater on site?
The best practical extent, they do.
No.
But unfortunately, where this site is. at the low point of the
Okay,
river,
okay.
so we
Some of
see
them.
additional-
I've
Yes,
never-
So-
We'll let you share the screen.
Yeah.
That
Hold on.
would handle the entire
Yeah,
thing, which is
chatter for
very, very low.
It's his
Quick,
problem.
could you repeat that? Because I couldn't hear that. I couldn't hear that.
Okay, John will sit at the table.
Can I take a picture of the map? Is that okay if I take a picture of the map?
Yes.
I don't know where sure.
Can we
Folks,
keep the chatter down, please,
Folks,
so we can all
we
hear?
we have to let the chair run the meeting, or we can't have them run the meeting, so she'll call on people when.
Thank you.
Could I just suggest that we take a look at the map so we all understand exactly where things are? I think that would be really helpful.
It's in
Page 2 of the memo.
It was not in the memo?
It was in the-
Do you want me to do, I'm joining, yes, you got it, yeah, you got it. Okay. And I need to-
Sorry, it's just.
So page 2, Cassidy.
Yeah, I just want to share my screen, so.
Sure.
see it.
This was trying to leave it to that, so we didn't
Yeah.
do it. Here we go.
So the site that's under development is this property number 11. This area of Larkspur Road is going uphill, so the option to tie into a drain manhole over there would require them to pump, which doesn't make sense because pumps, you know, can fail or go out during the worst time when there's a heavy rainstorm event.
So you know, the topography is such that the closer drain is
Is uphill.
physically uphill.
I disagree
Can
with
we
that.
leave,
Also-
please?
It's over here.
We'll let you comment.
Yeah. You'll have your turn.
Mr. Dagley, can you tell us exactly where the other drain is on that map?
So the other drain is near the intersection. This shows a catch basin over here, and that's the drain manhole. So that's uphill of their system. So they would actually have to pump. The city always prefers having
No,
gravity.
I understand the rationale for it
Sure.
completely, and use gravity to work for you, I get that. I think we're gonna hear from the residents that they don't believe it's uphill. I don't know, I'm just trying to understand.
Well, it did drop the minimum cover, and everything is uphill above the site. So the area they're gonna be tying into is a drain manhole they're gonna construct here, extend 152 feet to the end of the public right of way, and then put in their pipe to the overflow connection. The beauty of this design allows the neighborhood in this area, which has, I witnessed 3 or 4 sump pumps being just discharged to the front yard. These folks can tie into the system eventually. Because right now, what they're doing is pumping the water out to the front yard, it gets into the ground, again, gets back into the place, it's just recycling. So with this overflow connection, they could tie into this, it'll go out to the Charles River.
Can I just follow up?
Please.
So the rationale for allowing this here is the ground is so, the groundwater level is so high that you really can't go into the ground without causing flooding again. Is
Right,
that the
and
rationale?
the fact that that site is the low point of the neighborhood, everyone upstream street flows naturally to them. But just by nature.
That site is the low point?
Right, it receives the runoff from the Chudd's property and the gentleman, I forgot their last name, but their yards all drain to that
Well,
site.
but then the other properties below that are lower, right?
Right, but they're getting the brunt of the water, so the water is coming onto their site. Handling excess water is difficult to handle on site with the soils types they have in the high ground.
So when they put the drainage in, is York Road gonna be entirely repaved after that?
They would have to, it's not in the best condition, so the trench will come out better than the existing roadway. It hasn't been paid for several years.
Hold on, please. I will call on as soon as,
So I just wanna understand, you're saying that
Mark,
the road
finish,
is
you
in
guys.
such poor condition there, that digging a trench and filling it on top afterwards can be better than what's there?
I call bullshit, I'm sorry.
yeah, please, what we,
You can't interrupt us, sir, okay?
You will have.
You cannot interrupt.
You know, there is a limit.
Sir,
Be patient. You
This
will have
is a
to-
public
Limited
hearing,
lives.
a public meeting, you cannot interrupt,
gonna,
so go ahead.
I think it's very important for, Mr. Daglian to explain the situation so that we all are on the same page, so. And I will ask a couple of city councilors who have additional questions, and then I will definitely go to the public and get your questions, comments, and concerns as well, okay?
I'm set for the moment. so.
So, and your Counselor Kelly and then Counselor
I just have
Danforth.
a quick follow-up to Councilor Rado's
Okay.
point. So they will repave over the trench, but does that require them to repave that section of the road or just the area of the trench will be in nicer conditions?
Just the area of the change, because the condition of the road isn't very good.
Yeah, but in some cases, doing certain utility work, when you do that, you then are forced to repave curb to curb, but that's not the situation here.
The reason, logic behind that is for twofold. A, the condition of the road, and B, if these homeowners decide to tie in, why rip up new asphalt again and then have them repaved?
I don't-
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm done.
I'm next.
No,
Counselor,
I'm waiting.
Counselor Danforth.
Mr. Daglian, the house at the top of the map is the low point in the entire neighborhood or just the low point on that side of the street?
Everything above here, they're the low point. They're getting
Okay.
runoff from this side and the north of that. side.
Okay, and on the other side of the street, which is below on the map, are they lower or the same height?
It's approximately the same elevation throughout this area, from here all the way to here. It's pretty
Okay.
flat.
Okay, and on the repaving, generally, we allow, we do a trench, we have it, done over, and then we allow a year for it to settle, and then we go back in. Is that gonna be done? Are we gonna go back in after a year and
Not the city, they would be responsible for that, the applicant.
the applicant would
If it
be
settles,
responsible?
if it settles after, before a year is over, they would be required to come back and.
Okay,
Gotcha.
and so that's in the process and they
That'll
would
be
be
part of the
required
street
to come
opening
in and repay. Okay, and the reason why the house at the top is requesting this is because they have constant flooding. And is their flooding worse than the flooding on the south side of the street?
The flooding is such a case that Their on-site system handles the 100-year storm event to the best practical extent.
Mm-hmm.
With the additional flow of the neighborhood, it's gonna be beyond that system capacity. So that's why they need the silver.
Okay, and what would be the cost of the neighbors on the south side of this map to tie in if they wish to tie in? And is it to their advantage to do so?
Absolutely advantage for them to do so. Cost wise, I couldn't give you that number unless I had quantities for like the distance from the main to the property and to the.
An average house would be $3,000, $5,000,
Between, I'd say,
$10,000,
I'd say between 5 to 7,000.
5 to 7. Okay, that's all my question for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just looking at the topography map here, you
Yep.
know, in terms of the elevations, and
Right.
it's looking pretty, you know,
And Councilor Guest, this is your ward.
correct. And
Yeah.
I'm sort of, you know, I wish I could driven by here today, you know, just to get a sense of the topography. But I'm seeing it run from 84 to 82, so that's 76. And then down here, it's like 72 down on York. So, and there's like there's, you know, a little bit of, like 6 feet.
York does go downstream to Quincy.
Okay, yeah, I bet I'm seeing a differential of like 6 feet. Does that seem? It's two up on Edgefield. You know, I'm seeing like 72, 76 up here, 78 along Edgefield, and then down here on York, I'm seeing like 72. So, you know, that sort of seems to be a gradual kind of, you know, as it's going towards Quinn down below. At 72, Quinn 72. So it's like a 6 foot.
Do you have any questions, Councilor? Guest?
No, at this point, no.
Okay, do you have one more question? Yeah.
What's the elevation above water level? Above the water,
Water table opening?
well, yes, the river has how many feet above river level is this neighborhood?
The site plan shows, I believe it's 74, and the Charles River was down probably another 10 feet below that.
Okay, so these houses, most of them have basements or don't have basements?
I didn't check for that, to be honest, but I did notice 3 of the houses did have some pumps coming out to their front yard.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to hear from the public now, so I'm gonna open the public hearing, and I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand, and I'm gonna ask you to tell us your name and address, and then
Okay.
please go ahead politely and tell
Okay.
us your issue.
I will try to be as calm as I can.
Name and
So,
address.
so first of
Name
all,
and address first.
Dima Finehouse, 12 York Road. We live in this house for 15 years. Okay? So all this digging is in front of our house. I just double checked on Google Maps where it has live view. There is no damage to asphalt in front of our house. Okay? So I take offense of that. I came here thinking that we have flooding, our street is flat. I told you, like, when big storms, we get 4-6 inches of water. And it's possible that this project will be positive for the whole situation. Maybe will be less water coming to the street, right? Less flooding. And that's where I'm coming from, okay? So our street is flat, so I don't know where is gravitation here carrying water to the river. I don't see. Larkspur is graded all along from this corner and even higher to Woburn Center to the Winnipesaukee down below.
To the river.
It's never, ever flooded. Anyway, that's something. I appreciate that people worry about our pump system. A while ago, about 10 years ago, there was a sewage backup. And judging by the sewage backup, majority of the houses in the neighborhood have basements because all of them had sewage backup in their basements. That was pumping station didn't work somewhere closer to on Quinnipiac. I don't know what's the exact address. Anyway, so that's all I want to say. I don't understand why misrepresentation about the quality of asphalt. And I don't understand why, somebody is trying to be a good Samaritan to our property while digging the front from the left to the right, all the way, and they're helping us. That sounds really, really offensive.
Okay, could you state your name and address, please?
I don't understand that statement. You said you don't understand why someone would be a good Samaritan and would be digging in front of your house?
Right, they're saying they're helping our sump system. In 15 years, we had no problem with sump system. We have sump system. It's pumping, it's working fine. We have no problem with that.
Then you don't need to, connect to that.
You would not want to.
We are
wanna
fine.
connect-
15
If
years,
you don't
no
have a problem,
problems.
you don't need to connect to it.
We have some system, it works fine. We have two sump pumps, one on the back, another in the front. They work like clockwork. We have no problem. And we don't have water in the house either, besides that sewage backup case.
What number, York? are you?
12.
12, thank you.
So the document is actually a little bit misleading. It says that the water thing, how it's called, stormwater, is in front of 20 York Road. It's actually in front of left corner of 12 York Road. It doesn't reach 20.
Is that correct, Mr. Dagnan?
This is number 12, the manhole that they're gonna be putting into this is at the last
It's already
portion of
there.
the dead end of the city drain lead.
It's already there.
Okay. Would you like to, could you state your name and address, please? And we'll go ahead.
Karen Ringheiser, 12 York Road. I live in the same house with Dima, and I would also, I also take offense because the way it was described, that Larkspur Road by the city engineer, I'm sorry, what is your first name?
John.
John?
John Dagnan.
John, the way it was explained, to this group here, Larkspur Road is parallel to York Road, and they both go right into the Charles River. They both go on to Quinnipiquin, and they both drain into the Charles River. And once again, this area, I walk and run every day, multiple times a day on Larkspur around the neighborhood. And this area, this street goes down. It's graded down. Maybe there's a piece on this corner. And I really appreciated your comment, Mark, and your two comments of asking these questions and doing the due diligence. Because maybe it is upgraded up here, but on this side, it's all downhill. And that part wasn't mentioned. That was all not mentioned. So it's misrepresenting. And we, since we've been homeowners on 12 York Road, we've seen a lot of things happen in the town right next to us. We didn't know that there was a rental put in. And now we have an elderly housing of multiple people from different families and caregivers coming and going all hours of the day and night. And we were never made aware of it. Either we didn't see the notice or didn't get the notice. And we almost missed this because the notice arrived to us last Friday. And a lot of people on our street are on vacation this time of year. And the cars are not around and people are just out of town. And we likely could have been out of town, but luckily we saw the notice last Friday. So we were given less than a week notice. And it just seems like it's a pattern of this developer in particular. He built another house one street over of building these oversized houses. And I know this is not the time to talk about this oversized house on little stamp of land, tiny piece of land, no land around it. And now to ask for variances and to try to come up our street, dig it all up. And we have a daughter studying to take her bar exam for, just graduated in May 20th from UPenn Law School. And her husband living with us right now, and he's doing his residency. He starts his first day of work is at Mount Auburn Hospital. So he is on 12-hour shifts with 3 hours of sleep per night the next 2 months. And we're gonna have all this digging and all this disruption to our, that's temporary. But long-term too, I'm more concerned about long-term and the impact on us. And already, it's just the house looks terrible in the neighborhood. It doesn't fit the schema of the neighborhood. And now he's saying that other people are gonna join on this, because I'd really love to know, the cost of this pump. And why they're not doing the pump, because I think it's just all cost related. And then why they're not going down Larkspur. It's so much closer, and this uphill is going to Woburn Center that way, but this is all downhill to the river, to Quinnipiquin and the river.
Okay, thank you. So you're concerned about the disruption,
This-
that
this
you might get
disruption,
with this?
right.
Okay. There's one other person here. Would you like to speak?
Yeah,
Could you state your name and your address?
Sure, my name is Hope Ashner, and I live at 44 Gould Road, which is to the left. I know. Yeah. We used to row together. So my house is on the Gould's the other side of York. But my questions are, because I didn't really know where, I didn't see this, didn't know where they were digging. I thought it was illegal to tie in some pump system into the city drainage system.
That was my
It's
understanding.
illegal to connect to a sanitary sewer line.
Into a what?
It's illegal to connect to a sanitary sewer line. You can connect to the stormwater, which is,
Okay, so what happens, like I see all over town, they're putting those liners in the pipes everywhere.
that's where sanitary sewer, that's.
Okay, so does that
groundwater.
block the sump pump systems from going into those lines?
Some pumps should not be connected to sanitary sewer lines because you're adding extra flow to the
Right.
sewer system that's gotta go to Deer Island. That's what causes flooding in basements because sewers
Okay,
can.
'cause I didn't realize there was, so there's a.
We have to pay for every gallon that goes to Deer Island.
Okay, can we,
No, that's fine. I didn't realize there were two lines.
Right.
So my second question is, how is it legal to dump into the river?
This
our
drain,
new, yeah, our new stormwater system, we're supposed to be keeping water on site, and we're not supposed to be
to the practical,
to the practical
practical
purposes, but
extent
this
they
doesn't
do.
seem that practical.
the city drainage system does connect to the Charles River. There is a head wall there with a forebay. That does some treatment and there's some gas trap outlet there.
Okay, so
So
you're saying there's some treatment of the stormwater at this location?
further downstream near the river.
Okay,
That's my question would be.
well, just one second. Did you have any other?
Except like, why is something like, why is this house approved in the first place?
Well, we
I
can't
mean-
discuss that right now. That's already done. We're just discussing.
I'd like to
this
know that
project.
too.
Yeah, because I don't understand, I mean, this is all,
Your city councils are all here. We can talk about that after.
okay,
But if you have any question pertaining to this item, which is what's
yeah, I
before us.
just didn't know what was legal and not legal in terms of tying into these.
Okay, let our.
The city
Mr.
has
Dagny.
allowed overflow
So then why
connections.
doesn't this guy pay for everybody to hook into the line?
That's not up to me, it's up to.
Can I make one more little note? So I spoke to people who live in this house. So it's the neighbors just up the Edgefield Road. And they just relatively recently, they didn't say when, installed the thing, connection to the stormwater along Larkspur Road. The way I understand, the last time you guys discussed variance related to this project, they had lots of objections and whatever else, but that's unrelated issue, obviously. But the next house goes to Larkspur, and they have a
Yes,
pumping and everything.
Well, I would like to hear from Mr. Daglian.
The Chuds who have a stormwater system, even though they are slightly uphill of the existing lot in question, they too have to pump, they're pumping to this manhole. So they have a pump system.
That house next.
Right,
next to it.
even though they're higher than the proposed lot, because of the elevation of this is a very shallow drain manhole. So they have to pump for that, and it's uphill of their site, so they stop the pump.
I have one more question. So is this house required to have a generator? Since it's gonna have all these pump systems and it's a
No, this
problem?
is an all gravity system that they propose.
Okay. So, Mr. Daglian, would you like to just explain the questions that came up regarding what's legal and what's not legal, just to
Sure.
reiterate that?
So it's illegal to have a sump pump connection to a sanitary sewer line. What's allowed, it's been allowed since I've been here, when I had dark brown hair. Overflow connections to the drainage system is allowed because DEP mandates that stormwater infiltrate on site to maximum practical extent. So they consider groundwater elevation, soil types. So they say, design a system that will take as much as you can. If you need an overflow connection, that's where the city comes in, and the city has allowed that for many years prior to my being employed here.
So
Councilor Laredo.
So just to explain briefly, water lines, sewer lines, and stormwater lines are three separate things. So you can't mix sewer and stormwater. It's just not a
If you
good
do, it's a
idea.
bad idea.
Very
Yeah, I
bad.
know. So, well, like, our house was built in the fifties and it had a sump pump connected to something on the street. And then we closed that up and we,
Would have been
Why?
connected, should have been
I
connected
don't-
to stormwater drain, not a sewer drain. Sewer line.
we had to put, we did a renovation, we had to put these giant cisterns in the backyard and everything had to go into
Right,
that.
what I, if I may,
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Please
I
go
want to
ahead.
understand, Mr. Daglian, in your professional judgment, they cannot do any system which will allow all the water to stay on the property? Not at all, just not
Even if
possible.
it was expensive,
And is that because they built such a large house?
No, it's because the soil type and the groundwater condition.
So the size of the house has nothing to do with whether they're keeping it on. If that was vacant land, would they still have excess stormwater?
Yes, because of the location of the site, because they're the low point with neighboring properties, they're getting the brunt of the water.
So I'm just trying to follow, your professional judgment is irrespective of what's been built there, they still would have had an overflow problem. Right. So I hear that. You're proposing with this system, gravity, okay, I get that. You're proposing that they dig a straight line trench, right? How long is that construction gonna take?
It all depends on the contractor that's selected. Something like this could be done within about 10 business days,
10 business days.
provided there's no accidents or unforeseen.
We have folks here who are trying to accommodate a family member. Is there a way of doing this so that we accommodate a family member and do the work, say, in August after the bar exam? I mean, I'm just trying to be very practical here.
That's something that could be conditioned as part of the
Right.
approval. of
We can
future-
condition
Just to
that.
be clear, do you have to dig up the whole street to do this?
No, they're going to this point, this last point where there's a connection that they'll be making. And then from there up, they'll go 152 feet to a manhole and then to another manhole, and this is all gravity flow.
Right, so,
Right, but are you having to dig up the street or can you line, how do you work that?
Well, they have to look at the
Because the
gas meter and all, the gas main and also the water main.
Yeah.
And there's a sanitary source, so this is the best alignment that they could get that pipe in.
and the reason you're suggesting that that area not get repaved is because other people may wanna
They
connect.
may
to it.
choose to do so.
Right, but how many other people are there who could connect? Because we have one of them right here.
Right, I mean, there's 4 houses in that area. I think I saw 3 sump pumps coming out to the front. of the yard.
Has anyone reached out to those folks about connecting?
That would be up to the applicant.
Well, I don't wanna leave it up to the applicant to do
Right.
this unless we have some supervision. So I would like to find out before we approve this, Madam Chair, I'd like the applicant, and you can help coordinate this, Mr. Daglian, to contact every one of these people and find out if they want to connect. And if they want to connect, do the work at the same time. If they don't want to connect, you can just pave it over.
At a minimum, they could run laterals from the proposed main out to the property line. So the only digging would have to take place on private property.
It matters not to me how they do it. I don't want to see this dug up over and over again. That
Sure.
seems exceptionally disruptive.
Good,
One of the
so
Warehouses has already said they're not interested.
yeah, I would, I'll, of course, let me defer to you, Councilor Getz, this is your
Oh,
board.
no, I just wanted to find out why the other solution wasn't explored, if in fact, number 3, Edgefield was pumping and then going to the other
Yeah.
connection up above. I mean, that happened recently, correct? So I don't understand why this wasn't another potential solution, that they too would pump to that other site.
That's an option. It would be, maintenance headaches. If the power goes out, they have to have backup generators to make sure the pumps run and they'll always go out when it's pouring cats and dogs.
No, I'm just.
So the city always prefers a gravity system that way.
Right.
there's a
But the other
minimum-
people think,
No, I'm more curious because a recent solution for number 3 was that they were to pump.
But consider that, that's the only, they're getting the benefit of that. With this gravity system, there's an option for other neighbors to tie in if they wish to choose.
Right.
Is it?
No, hold on, I'm not recognizing you right now.
Yeah, okay.
Councilmember.
No,
Sorry.
I just didn't understand why the two options were not explored, you know, in terms of this one next door, not going, you know, getting.
I want to recognize, when you're done, Councilor Albright, because she hasn't spoken yet, okay? We all set?
Yeah.
Councilor Albright.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not with you tonight. I think Council Laredo had an excellent idea to move hold on this and give the other folks on the street the opportunity to see if they want to join in. So I'd like to move hold.
Okay, thank you for that. And also, I think it's a great idea to move forward because we can have further conversations. Your ward counselor is here. And we can kind of understand the situation more, better. Yes. you
I
have
have
one
a
more?
question. So at the beginning of the meeting, he stated that the other options were cost prohibitive. And now he's saying they're not, that's not the situation. Like to capture your own water is cost prohibitive. That's what he said at the beginning of the meeting.
I mean, to have a system so expansive to have it to be able to take all the runoff from everywhere else. That's what I meant.
But the house next door did it. They hooked
The
up.
house next door is just their own system, that they're higher than.
I mean, capture, you said it was cost prohibitive for them to capture all the water on their own property. But that-
We're gonna hold this item, so there'll be more time for discussion, okay? I want to recognize Councilor Danberg, who's had her hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand whether the gravity feed system would have to be connected to York Road and the one that starts with an L, Larkspur Road. Is that an uphill connection? So
Uphill of the existing proposed site.
Yes.
I
So they
see.
would have to
You
pump
have
this.
to pump
as they
uphill.
go.
You have to
down
pump
Larkspur.
uphill. So it makes much more sense to have it run down York Road. Okay,
And the gravity system gives the benefit of neighbors the ability to tie in.
okay. And we've made the determination that the developer, between now and when we hear this item again, is going to contact all of the neighbors, find out if anyone is interested in connecting, at the homeowner's expense, making the connection. And if some are and if some want to and some don't, it will all be done at the same time, so that it will minimize the disruption to the neighbors.
That makes sense.
And if we know when the boards are given,
For example.
because bar
I
exams are
did
given.
8-hour, 2-day exam, the last 2 days of July.
Been there,
Do it
and
after
done-
that.
been there and done that.
That makes sense.
What I'd like to,
That's what I just wanted to follow
Counselor
up
from
on.
Ward
Would,
3.
would it, hi, Andrea Neely from Ward 3. Would it help if we were to put a delay on this?
100%, the stress, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's something that would be easy for us.
And especially with day one of her husband living in our house at 12
And
York
we're
Road.
holding it anyway.
we're holding it
We're holding
anyway. We
it.
can include that as a condition, okay?
Yeah.
One last question, and then I'd like to
I
hold this
would
item.
just suggest you guys to go drive by this house. Go drive over there and see what
Okay.
it is. Cause you know, we're
Sure.
telling you all this stuff, you're seeing pictures. Go drive by and see what the scoop
Okay.
is for.
You guys know what you're doing this weekend, okay?
Okay. Go check it out.
Okay, so Councilor Albright has made a motion to hold this item. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, and we're holding it with conditions, so we'll be coming back to talk about the neighbors that are gonna be given an option to tie in and condition
the
to
public
delay
hearing
it.
open.
Sure.
Yes. Yes,
I was just gonna ask if the petitioners could give me their email addresses, that way I can email you when, oh, sorry, not the petitioners, sorry, the abutters. They give me their email addresses, that way I can send you the agenda when it's gonna be on the agenda.
That'd be great.
I'll go over there.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm gonna, before we vote, I'm gonna make a motion to close the public hearing. Should we keep it open?
No,
Okay,
keep it
open?
I think
Oh,
we should,
okay,
yeah.
oh, that's right, we did just hold it, okay, because we're gonna come back to it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
The next, we can actually discuss the next two items together, but we're gonna vote on 26924 first. So let me read this into the record. This is the 558 for the Franklin School at 125 Derby Street. This is for the renovation, expanding to demolish and replace the existing Franklin School with a new school of approximately 71,000 square feet. And then the other item is 241-24, and this is to appropriate $73,608,506 to authorize a general obligation borrowing of an equal amount for the construction of the Franklin School project. And here to lead on this item is our building commissioner, Josh Morris.
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity this evening. This may feel like deja vu. I just gave a similar presentation last month to public facilities as part of the budget process, but we're going to go through this. I just want to set the stage a bit, just kind of recap so that we're all on the same playing field. So the Franklin School started a little over 2 years ago. Since that time, we've had more than 75 public meetings where Franklin was discussed, and more than 70 project emails went out. Last fall, we had, the city council may recall, I came in and presented our preferred concept before it was voted by the school building committee and design review committee, and then again afterwards. Through that process, we had unanimous support of the school building committee, the design review committee, and the overwhelming support of the parent community and the Franklin School staff supporting the preferred concept, which put the new building on the west end of the site where the fields are now. Primary reasons given for that was accessibility. So the west end of the site where the fields are has a much smaller difference between the elevations at Derby Street to the fields, whereas on the east end of the site, it's about a 13-foot elevation change from Derby up to the grade. So other end, 2.5 to 3 feet. So it was a huge difference from a topography standpoint. So a far better universally accessible design when putting the building on the fields. The green space layout was something that the community felt and the building committee felt was far superior in the option to put the new building on the field. It had the lowest cost for the best possible option, so that's always a plus. Sustainability, it was a far easier project from a sustainability standpoint, and I'll speak to that in just a second. And it had a superior bus drop-off, pickup, blue zone, bike, and pedestrian plan. So as I mentioned before, the west end of the site has a 2.5 to 3.5 foot elevation change, and the east end is 13 feet. The question was asked back then, what would it take if we were to lower the east end of the site where the existing building is? So I'll just take you very briefly through that. We would have needed to remove 1.6 million cubic feet of soil, which is the equivalent of about 5,000 dump trucks, 10 to 18 foot retaining walls for approximately 1,000 linear feet. And then after doing that, all that really does is it lowers that end of the site, but it still would result in several challenges that could not be overcome that made that option still inferior. It would cost approximately $10 million more to construct. It would result in 8 million pounds of carbon released from all of that earthwork, trucking, and retaining walls that had to be constructed. It would still be less accessible, and the reason for that is we would need to lower the east end of the site down so far that it would then create a difference in elevations between the east end of the site and the west end of the site, which would have to be made up either through retaining walls, stairs, and ramps, or we'd end up having to regrade and lower the whole west end of the site where the fields are now. So ultimately still less accessible. It also was a poor bus, car, bike, and pedestrian plan with that model. And as I mentioned before, less optimal green space. So again, unanimous support of the school building committee. This was all last fall. Unanimous support of the building committee, the design review committee, many presentations to the city council. The school committee has been involved since the beginning, extremely supportive. With that, I'm going to turn it over. Actually, I want Principal Chitty to speak. Then Assistant Superintendent Liam Hurley, and then we'll turn it right over to HMFH, our design team, to go through the presentation. Mark, you want to share your thoughts on the project? I'm sorry, Cassidy, can we get Mark unmuted?
Great. Thank you, Josh, and thank you all for allowing me to speak. So just representing the team at Franklin, we are very excited about the project. We're thrilled that it's moving forward. And, you know, of the many things we thought about as far as building design and site design, there are so many things about the building itself and the programming that would take place no matter where the building's sited. But Josh has pointed out some of the key things that we believe are very impactful on student safety, on student well-being, and our ability to improve the flow and efficiency of the school day, the experience for everybody, and increase our special education programming. So to the point of the accessibility, the difference that Josh named between the 13 feet and down to the couple of feet grade change is significant because as the building stands right now, it is, you know, the ramps exist, but the ramps are so steep that you can hardly consider the building accessible. So really having an accessible facility is a major goal for us, being sure that all of our students and families can come into our school and access all parts of it. And for safety, having the building at the west end of the site will allow us to discontinue vehicular access from Cherry Street. That can become a pedestrian and bike path. If a new building was built on the present site on the east end, we would either have to continue using the Cherry Street entrance for vehicle traffic to the staff parking lot, which we would not be able to move, or we would have to make the already too short blue zone, the area where parent drop-off happens, even shorter because some sort of driveway would have to go in over there. So that would be no, building on the east end would not be an improvement at all for an already substandard experience as far as the flow of traffic for vehicles, bikes, and pedestrians. And also moving to the west end of the site allows us to expand the parent drop-off zone, which is already very short. As it is on the east end, traffic every day backs up into the intersection with Cherry and Derby, which is not only inconvenient, but it is unsafe, which is the primary consideration. The other thing that happens with the east end siting, where it currently is that buses, vans, and parent drop-off are all happening in the exact same spot. That is not either in keeping with NPS transportation policy and plans, nor is it sustainable and safe. So with the West End site, the staff parking lot will move to the extreme west end with a north-south orientation to the parking lot. And we will be able to both expand the blue zone and have a bus drop-off area, which we currently do not. And we will have in the staff parking lot separate entrance for van drop-off. We are planning to expand special education programming as part of the new Franklin, which will mean more bus and more van traffic. So those are some of the primary things that the staff is very excited about and feels are necessary for the siting of the building, which is a different set of considerations than just the building itself and the interior design. So thank you all for all of the work and the planning to support Franklin. The way I keep talking about it is I think that as we move forward, we're going to have a building, a property, a whole setup at Franklin that truly represents how important the Franklin School is in the city of Newton. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mark. Liam?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Very tough to follow. Principal Chitty there and Josh really spoke a lot about the benefits. What I would just say from my perspective is this has been a fantastic project for the city of Newton and for Newton Public Schools. And what I would say is this is really an important vote in your consideration tonight. We have a lot riding on this. And what I mean by that is that we have 4 active building projects right now. And in many, many ways, these are all linked. Next summer, we have 2 building moves going on, Horace Mann to the swing space building. That will actually be a recommendation that the superintendent will be making on Monday night to the school committee, and as well as 150 Lincoln Elliott moving into 150 Jackson. So any change or disruption to the potential timing of Franklin, where they are not needing to move to a swing space, would have a pretty drastic impact, I would say, on Newton Public Schools and the timing of the Franklin or Horace Mann completion. I think Mr. Moore spoke quite a bit about already kind of the costs. There would be a delay, in my opinion, on the timing of either Franklin or Horace Mann, which neither one of those communities would be willing to accept, and would be very, very challenging for us right now. So this is part of a larger scheme for us. This is the sequence that we've laid out, and really excited. And we've been moving on this path for quite some time, as Josh said. We've got school committee and DRC all on board. So this is an important piece for us to get over and get this building built. That's all that I've got.
Thank you, Liam. So I'm just going to recognize our project team, or our project architect from HMFH. We have James, Melissa, and Lori here. We're also supported by our owner's project manager from CHA. But I'll turn it right over. James, Melissa, who's kicking things off?
I'm sharing screen, and James is having some issues, I think, audio wise, so he may take over, but he may not. So I can start.
This is the wrong screen.
Oh, am I? What am I sharing? It didn't let me pick it. It only lets me share the screen I'm on. Oh no. Oh, hold on. Shoot. I'm used to presenting from mine, and my network is all hooked up. James, do you have it? I emailed it to you. Do you have it to pull up? Because I have to email it to myself otherwise.
There might be a tab. When you click on share, there might be a few different boxes. You don't see that?
There's not. Well, maybe. Is this working? Can you see it now?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. It wasn't going up at first. All right. So apologies for that. Technical difficulties. So James, do you want to try to join or present, or should I?
Let me know. That's fine. Let me know if if the sound is bad, and we can just swap off. But the project is for an enrollment of 396 to 414 students. That's 3 sections for K through 5th grade, 2 on each floor. So it's a 3-story building. The design, it meets all of the program requirements. All the spaces are the right size, and the gross square feet is about 71,000 square feet. We've got a pretty low wall to window ratio, or window to wall ratio, excuse me, of 21%. And that'll help us a lot with our TEDI, our code, the new energy code requirements, and with sustainability in general. Our target energy use intensity is 25 BTU per square feet per year. That's pretty low, but it is also the threshold for the maximum utility incentive. We are using a ground source heat pump with variable refrigerant flow. This is based on, not just similar, but based on the system that is specified for the Countryside project. And of course, the project will be zero combustion, all electric building. Primarily zero combustion. The generator will be combustion, but beyond that. Okay, next slide. So this is the site plan as proposed. You can see the red outline of the existing building on the east side of the building, and of course the new footprint on the west side of the building. The site includes 60 parking spaces, on the left-hand side, you see that all the way to the west, accessed off of Derby Street. So that's a big change from the access through that Cherry Street corridor that exists now. The building, again, as has already been talked about, is fully accessible on site with no stairs, no ramps, just sloping pathways from end to end on the site. Every pathway that you see is graded to be accessible. Along Derby Street, you see that there is a bus loop for 2 buses. They think that'll be the maximum they would ever see at a time. Often it'll just be 1 bus. You also have a blue zone with a sheltered handicap spot at the front of it, so that cars within the blue zone don't pull forward into that handicap spot. You can see the outdoor classroom, yep, where Melissa is pointing, right outside the front of the building, as well as the playground outside the front of the building. And the idea is that the playground is presented as a community space to Derby Street and to the community, and the building kind of wraps around and hugs that community center. On the east side of the site, there'll be space for a baseball diamond, a fairly small baseball diamond, and a U8, well, a multi-purpose field that could be used as a U8 soccer field. It could be striped that way, as well as hardscape play, including foursquare and basketball. One of the big changes is, again, that Cherry Street access. That's currently automotive, but will be changed to pedestrian and bike access. As Mark mentioned, this cuts down on an existing safety issue and creates an sort of additional path and a community path onto the site, especially to those community uses of the fields and the playground. Next slide. Some of the statistics related to traffic management. There are 90 full-time staff. Nope, sorry. There are 90 staff proposed for the Franklin School, 65 of them full-time and 25 part-time. Again, 2 buses, we talked about that. The blue zone capacity is 12 to 15, including that sheltered handicap spot that we showed. Within the new parking lot, there will also be drop-off and pickup positions for 4 vans. Currently, the school, I believe, has 1 van, but because of the additional district-wide bridge special education program, they're planning for as many as 4 vans. So what that means, since there's 60 spots, 60 parking spots, is the remainder, the 30 site, will need to be managed on off-site parking. That 30. Okay, next slide. Some of the recommendations from the traffic report are shown here, working from left to right or from west to east. We're going to relocate the school zone flasher, which you see as that blue cross, so that it is on the west side of the parking lot, and the idea being that traffic will get to it before they get to the turn in for the parking lot. We're also exploring a raised crosswalk, a raised intersection at the intersection of Pershing and Derby, as well as a crosswalk with ADA ramps, pedestrian school crossing signs at the intersection of Howard and Derby. On Cherry Street, you can see another crosswalk with ADA ramps and pedestrian crossing signs, as well as the school zone signs, those blue crosses on either side of that crosswalk location. We have studied the grade and traffic on that location and believe that this is the best position for a pedestrian crosswalk. From a purely flat plan point of view, pushing it further north to the street just to the north might look better, but because of the crest in the road, that pushed that desire line further south. It is far enough from the light at Cherry and Derby to not be disruptive for that traffic. Next slide. We've submitted the stormwater oh, you went to. We've
I got
submitted.
impatient, sorry.
No worries. We've submitted the stormwater management plan to John Deglian and received a very clean set of comments. But what you see here is basically our strategy with porous pavement throughout the parking lot and some of the paths. There's also fairly large infiltration systems, both to the north of the building and extending to the east, as well as under the basketball court and the bus loop. There's a fairly small bio retention basin between the baseball field and the playground that is really dealing with site water more than building water, as well as some catch basins on the way down to the Cherry Street access point. You can't quite see here, but there are 4 catch basins along that route because of the slope of the path. We are regrading that path to create ADA access. Okay, next slide. We are saving a lot of trees. What you see here, they're all green. So in the sort of mid-tone green is our existing trees. The dark green are new canopy trees, and the bright green are new evergreens used exclusively along the abutter lines to create more shielding between abutters and the new building and new site. We are managing to replace more caliper inches than we are removing. And you can see that in the numbers at the top, but they're not far off, but right now we are being very careful to remove as little as we have to. And we won't be necessarily paying anything into the tree bank, assuming this strategy holds. Next slide. Just briefly, a little bit about the building planning. The wing to the east with the classrooms is a 3-story classroom wing with kindergarten and first grade on this first floor, second grade and third grade on the second floor, and fourth and fifth grade on the third floor. You can see the sort of extra kindergarten first grade classroom that is right now planned to be a first grade classroom, but should a bubble come through, it has the opportunity and it's fitted out to be used as a kindergarten classroom. And then on the wing of the building to the west side are all the sort of community and public spaces. So that includes the lobby that you enter into straight from the main path from the bus loop, the gymnasium, the cafeteria and kitchen with its platform connected to the music room, which is a model that you have in a number of your schools, as well as admin and medical suite spaces. Next slide. Again, you see the classroom wing rising up on the east side. And then the second floor of the communal wing or the community wing has a library, which overlooks the lobby and connects to the classroom. Next slide. And then the third floor is very much like the second without the library, with the fourth and fifth grade, as well as reading, math, and lit rooms. Next slide. We have been working with the working group and the DRC through a number of material palette decisions and investigations. These include masonry and brick masonry for the most part, and a number of different colors of brick masonry, as well as different ways of creating some extra interest within the brick facades, meaning bricks that pop in and out and create patterns across the facades. One of the image to the left, the first one, was of particular interest. This idea of a pattern that kind of expands across a big portion of the building isn't local necessarily, and gives the building kind of a bigger decorative form. Another material that we've been looking at is phenolic. Those are the two images over to the right, particularly a wood embedded phenolic, which has the look of wood. It's a natural material underneath the compressed components of the phenolic, so it will last forever. It is a highly durable material, but it gets that look of wood, and there's been a lot of appeal for that. Okay, next slide. So the next group of slides, we're going to kind of move around the building. This is obviously from the bus loop looking towards the front door at the junction of the two wings. You can see our "We Love Franklin" sign, which is derived from a sign that must have been created by the community at the existing school. There's a chain link fence, and there's these, the pop-in color pieces, and they've made it to make a heart Franklin. It's a great sign, and we're kind of using that as inspiration for our building sign. You can see the library at the second floor over the entry wing, and then the 3-story academic wing behind the trees. Next slide. Getting closer to that front door, again, you see the sort of the motif of these special elements: the library, the math and reading room, as well as art is on the second floor there. And then the music room, you can kind of make out the music room through the tree all the way to the left. So these special elements are what are clad in this wood phenolic material. And they also pop out from the volume of the rest of the building and kind of announce themselves, using that same language to also announce the front door and the sign connecting the stair tower to the library. Next slide. Coming up closer to the front door, again, you see that same element that I just described. We're also looking at a sculptural falcon. We keep calling it Freddie the Falcon because Franklin's symbol is the falcon, and color is green, by the way. Next slide. This is a view from the parking lot from the west side of the building. You can see the secondary entrance that leads into the cafeteria and the phenolic volume of the music room. Next slide. Coming a little bit further around, still kind of focused on that entrance to the cafeteria and the glazing to the cafeteria to let some natural light into that space. You also kind of see the tertiary entry, which is kind of a service emergency entry back there that leads into the service area and to the gym corridor. Next slide. Okay, now from the Cherry Street path, you've got the multi-purpose field to your right, the baseball field to your left, the basketball field in front of you, and again, you're running along, you're moving along that path and heading towards the front door as the building kind of announces itself as you arrive. Next slide. Getting closer. Now you're just before the basketball court. That's what's right in front of you here. Nope, that's not true. That was the playground, wasn't it? Sorry, you're actually closer than you're kind of standing in the basketball court, and what you were looking at was the playground, excuse me. Next slide. Heading around towards the back, this motif of the blonde brick, which kind of pairs well with the phenolic volumes, demarcating stair. This is the back stair. Next slide. And then heading towards the gymnasium. To the left is the 3-story academic wing, and the gym to the right, with its kind of secondary entrance and exit directly to the gym. I believe that's our last slide. Is that correct? Yep.
It is.
All right. So with that, I welcome any comments or questions, anything we can help with.
Okay, thank you very much for that very comprehensive presentation. I'll take it into the committee and see if there are any questions.
No questions. I think this is great. I'm ready to vote approval whenever Councilor Kelly wants to make a motion.
I'd like to do that very soon, but I do have a couple of questions and one overall comment. One is that I do live in this neighborhood, and I'm on the Franklin School Building Committee, and I'm on the Design Review Committee, and I want to support all the positive things that Josh Morse and Liam Hurley and Mark Chitty said about it. And the fact that it has been so well reviewed by the Franklin community, both parents and neighbors. There's quite a lot of budding issue along this side we're looking at uphill. So I'm very much in support, and I will move to approve it. I just do have 2 questions though for the architect who just did the presentation. Can you talk more about how they're going to handle 3 off-site parking spaces for staff? 30, I mean. Where and how do you plan to manage that? Or maybe I heard you wrong.
No, you did not hear me wrong, but I think I might be the wrong person to answer the question. Can I pass that on to Alex or Josh?
Sure. I actually didn't hear that correctly. I don't think. Did you say 3 parking spaces?
30.
Oh, okay, good. I was going to say we need more than 3. I wish that's all we needed.
3 would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, what we do is on our projects on Angel Reservis, Cabot, Countryside, Franklin, Lincoln, Elliott, we typically target roughly 55 on-site parking spaces, some a little less, some a little more. Primarily, this is either due to just site constraints, but also the delicate balance of asphalt to open space, green space, play space, and those other elements. Here for the Franklin School, what we would end up doing is a parking management plan. So the 30 parking spaces offsite also include a lot of part-time staff that have varying schedules. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that we need 30 spaces that would be filled, all day, every day. So that's something that we would work with the Newton Public Schools, Mark and his team, DPW, the Traffic Council, and develop a parking management plan that would be for folks who've served on our building committees in the past. That's something we continue to work on in the next phase of design and communicate out to the community, get feedback. And then ultimately there oftentimes the parking management plan is a pilot. And then we see if there's any changes that we need to make after the fact.
Are you primarily thinking that the 25 part-time staffers will be parking on neighboring side streets?
So I would say that in general, again, I am one voice in this, but in general, I think the logical locations are Derby and south of Derby, as opposed to north of Derby. Clark Road, Russell Road are very, very narrow. And even some of the streets to the south we'll have to keep an eye on too. They can get narrow. But again, I think that we're not, I would imagine that what we're probably looking at is somewhere closer to 15 to 20 parking spaces, with some of those being shared because of those part-timers.
Okay, so you don't have the answer yet. I was just, I must have missed that you were needing to park 30 other cars on, as you said, these very narrow, crowded side streets. So, okay, not a plan, but you will have a plan. My other question was, a lot of the parking, the big parking lot and the paving was permeable. Is that path that's now going to be pedestrian and bike coming up from Cherry also permeable?
Some of it is, and some of it isn't, depending on the soils below it.
Okay, so that was not shown in any rendering as a difference of material, but you have not solved that one yet either.
The stormwater management plan does indicate portions of it that are.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's definitely solved. It's just in a rendering, I don't think you'd necessarily pick up on the difference between pervious and impervious.
Well, it was all rendered the same.
But
and
the-
I don't think that rendering really reflects how it's going to look, but I'm very glad you switched it into pedestrian. And I was just asking because it was a really strong point that you were going to have so much permeable paving on the site. I wondered why maybe that piece of it might not be, but it's about what's beneath it.
Correct.
Okay, I don't want to prolong things. I think it's a very well vetted project. I'm happy to move approval within committee.
Okay, thank you. I see we have a couple of councilors with their hands up, so I'm going to recognize Councilor Albright first.
Thank you very much. My only question, I like the site plan. The only question is, on the parking lot side, you don't have, landscape screening along the whole length of the parking lot. Is it too narrow over there to put anything in there?
So it's a good question, and I think I saw Janet on here on the call tonight. So we are going to continue to work on that. One of the things, they have some lovely plantings on their side of that chain link fence. So I want to be careful that whatever we plant isn't competing with that, especially from a solar exposure standpoint. So that's something we'll continue to work with our abutter on. They'll help influence how we approach our landscaping, because that whole left side, if you will, as you're looking at it top down from Derby Street, that whole left side, almost the entire length, is her property line. So.
Okay, so you're gonna take that into account and figure it out and do what the neighbor wants, done, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
Under
thank-
normal circumstances, we would do, very simple or very simple example. We would do arborvitaes lining that whole section just to offer some vegetative screening. But I don't want to completely bury the sunlight for all of their beautiful plantings directly on the opposite side of the chain link fence. So we'll work it out with them, and we'll definitely we'll take our cues from Janet and her team.
Thank you, that's good.
All set, Councilor Albright?
Yep, thank you.
Councilor Gentile?
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair. First of all, I want to say that I am extremely pleased to see that rather than looking at some kind of an addition renovation, that the group decided to build new. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I want to express my pleasure about that. I think it's great for the neighborhood, and I look forward to voting for the money and the bonding. However, when it comes to the site plan, I am much less enthusiastic, and I want to take a couple of minutes to explain why. Because I probably will not end up supporting the site plan. So when I look at these school sites, I break them down into sort of three areas. One is the actual building. The second is the parking lot for the building. And then the third, which is obviously very important, is the open space. And I think that when we then move to put in a new building, we should make, and I think we have, make every effort to keep those features pretty much in the same spot so that people, and I'm speaking here about the abutters primarily, who have lived with a certain set of circumstances for, 80 years, end up in similar situations. And I heard Josh, this is no surprise to Josh because I've expressed this to him already. And we're just not doing that here at Franklin. We're taking a parking lot that has been in back of the building since day one, and we're moving it totally across the site, and we're putting it up against some abutters fences that have been looking out at open space since the day that they bought there. The school building is being moved from, its existing location, and it's going over and it is taking up a bunch of land that has been open space since day one. And now you've got abutters that are gonna have a totally different view of what they're looking at. Instead of looking at open space, they're gonna be looking at 35 to 40 feet of a brick wall. There are 2 baseball diamonds there now, and we're gonna end up with 1 baseball, well, I shouldn't say baseball and softball diamonds. And you're gonna end up with 1, and that is being totally flipped to the other side of the site. It is literally one of the base path lines, the foul lines is literally runs along 4 or 5 neighbors' backyards that are on Cherry Street. And I think some of you in the room probably remember how well that worked out over at Newton North. Well, this is much tighter than the situation that we had over at Newton North. The bus loop, I'm not sure that we need to eat up more open space in putting in a bus loop for basically 2 buses, when for as many years as I've been familiar with the sites, the buses just pulled a little bit ahead on Derby Street in front of the blue zones. Now, I'm Ward 4 and I get it, but for those in the room that don't know it, I have had a family home a stone's throw from this property since 1962. So basically, and I still have the home. And so I'm talking 64 years of experience. And I also had 4 children who went through the Franklin School. So I have some pretty good knowledge of it. And to answer Council Kelly's question, what the overflow parking is, the staff will park on Derby Street, usually a little further up heading towards Waltham. The new blue zone is going to extend there, so I expect that they will park a little further up Derby, or I'm at the corner of Pershing and Adams, and for years they've parked on Pershing. So that's where the overflow parking is. And I would expect that, that would continue and maybe even be a little bit more. So again, everything got flipped. And I don't understand why we couldn't have, well, I heard the explanation and I really don't want to hear it again. And I honestly don't want people to take the time to rebut all these things. I'm just expressing in committee so that I won't have the urge to do it on the full floor of the board what my objections are, because I do plan on, I'm not going to vote for this site plan. I think that someone else may have taken a different look at it and done something more in line with what we have now. But you got an inferior baseball field. The playground's in a less desirable spot. The playground right now is in a great spot. It butts Derby Street. It's got plenty of open space. It flows out into the ball fields in the open space that's just open. And we're losing that. So I don't think that is an improvement at all. So having said that, I just had a couple quick questions for Josh. Josh, on the gymnasium end, that is the lowest point of the building, correct?
Yeah, the staff
Lowest
parking lot
height?
is, yeah, that's the lowest end of the building is actually the service area. Then if you're facing it from left to right on the aerial, the service area is on the left, that's the lowest end. It then bumps up to the gym height. And then as you go further right to the academic bar, it bumps up again.
So at that end, will there be mechanicals on the top of those buildings?
Yes, will be mechanicals with acoustical and visual screens surrounding them.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. So those rooftop units, they'll be screened / not just screened, but enclosed? So for aesthetic purposes and for acoustical purposes, we're gonna be doing the best that we can do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have an acoustical engineer. We'll work with our mechanical engineer to ensure that we are meeting, if not exceeding, the noise, the decibel level. Exceeding sounds bad. That we're doing better than the minimum with regards to decibel level at the property line.
All right, because those are the folks that are gonna be having the greatest change, and I think we should do everything possible to make sure that, you know, all of a sudden they're not hearing rooftop units that they've never heard since they bought their houses there. So I'm glad that we're going to do that. The other thing is there was one other, I know earlier in your discussion tonight, and again, I want to, I don't know if I already said this, but as usual, Josh has done a great job of running the project, you know, getting people involved, reaching out. He's done all the right things there. We just have come to a different conclusion about the overall site. If you remember at Zervis, we bought 3 properties at a substantial amount of money in order to improve the site and to make it as easy as possible on the neighbors. And I don't know if any of those things were even considered, but I think that maybe there were some opportunities there. What about I didn't hear any what about solar? Are there plans for solar? There are plans for solar panels eventually, right?
So yeah, we are planning for solar on the roof, and the parking lot, which I would imagine is probably where you were headed, Counselor, is something that would be possible, but that would both the solar on the roof and any potential solar on the parking lot would be something that would have to come separately to the City Council for approval. I'm confident that we will come to you proposing solar on the rooftop.
Okay, well, I just think, and maybe it has been brought up to the abutters. I don't think anybody wants it to be a surprise that, you know, there will be some solar panels there, whether it be the parking lot or on the roof. I think that should be made clear to folks. And then only one small thing, Howard Street, I can see why you would want to have a crosswalk there, but I think that makes 3. The only potential problem with that, and again, this is a minor point, there's a small little dead-end street, Howard, and the problem with putting a crosswalk there is you're going to encourage people to pull into Howard and park and then, you know, bring their child up to the crosswalk, and that gets to be a pretty crowded area because it's such a small, there isn't really a lot of room for people to turn around. So I don't know if you want to maybe take a look at that and see if that is really the best plan. And again, I know folks aren't agreeing with a lot of what I have to say, but please double check and think more about eating up green space with a bus loop. I'm not quite sure that you need it. And I guess that's all that I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. We'll definitely take a look at those.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm gonna open the public hearing now. I see some hands, a hand raised. So I'll call on Ms. Conlon. If you could just state your name and your address, please.
Hi, I'm Julie Conlon. I'm at 66 Pleasant Street and I am a Franklin parent. And I just want to say thank you to Josh and to James for your thoughtful consideration and everything that you have put together for the Franklin community. It is really just amazing and incredibly thoughtful of the amount of time and energy that you put into all of this, as is very evident from your presentations. Thinking about what we have now versus what we're going to have, it's really exciting to think about the new building that we're going to have and the new fields that we're going to have to be able to be proud of in our community. The fields we have now, it is a big open space, but honestly, it's flooded and muddy for most of the year that the school is in session. So it'll be nice to see that all redone, and your plans obviously have this beautiful flow to it. Right now we have a split between two smaller playgrounds that are very old and looking forward to having more of a cohesive plan with the playgrounds all together in this beautiful setting that's going to be adjacent to the field. So thank you again for all of your thoughtfulness in this. As far as families living through this change, we're all dealing with these sort of growing pains throughout Newton with any changes and renovations and new construction that is happening. So I understand and feel that, but at the same time, I think this is such an amazing plan for the greater community. It's important to keep that in mind. For current families, thinking about minimizing the impact. I have a kindergartner this year. I have another child who just graduated from Franklin, so we've been here for a while. And thinking about living through this whole renovation, I'm just, again, grateful to the committees for keeping that in their minds as well, that we're going to be able to keep the children on site and minimize the amount of movement and not have to deal with a swing space, and looking forward to having that beautiful new facility. So thank you. And thank you for the time for letting me speak.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Ms. Conlon, for your comments. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak? There is, yes, please.
Zero 19 Garland. I'm a Mason-Rice parent, and I'm envious and happy for the families that are going to have this facility. I want to add two things to the conversation. Number one, when you look at the building materials, please try to economize and do similar choices around all the other projects so you can share costs and minimize the cost of the taxpayers. Number two, despite the opposition of council or Gentile to change, I think change is important, change is necessary. We have kicked the can on these projects for way too long, and our kids deserve better infrastructure. That being said, I think the baseball field should be even smaller, if not non-existent. The future is soccer, it's not baseball anymore. You look at any statistics, you have Copa America playing right now, we're going to have the World Cup, we're going to have the biggest generation playing the biggest sport in the world, and we keep on holding on to all dated, outdated ideas like Councilor Gentile is asking about. And number three, please think about the long term. Mason-Rice parents are also hoping that some of these projects and enhancements reach out to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone online that would like to speak? I see Mr. Keenan.
Hi, yes, and thank you. I live at 54 Clark Road. I'm a direct abutter to the school project, closest to the entrance or the future entrance over at Russell Road. And we've met with Josh. He's trying to do the best he can to help us, but I would second what Councilor Gentile said, simply because it's only a few of us. I think we are all in favor of a new school. Both of my kids have gone to Franklin School. I still have one there. And we've lived here since 2007. I fully support a new school, but I agree that the site plan is impacting a few of the abutters in a way that's going to be blocking out the sunlight from our backyard, kind of flipping the neighborhood on its ear. So I would just say anything that we can do, and Josh has already met with us on some landscaping and things like that, but to change the site plan so that we're not looking at a giant brick wall right outside of my bedroom window, would be helpful. And so I don't say that by means of saying we shouldn't build a new school, but I do think it's a lasting impact also on a very small number of people that want better things for the larger community, but feel like it doesn't matter to the rest of the community what happens to us. So I just wanted to put that out there in support of Councilor Gentile's comments. And it's not because we're not in favor of the kids having better resources, better schools, but I think we could probably achieve both without having such a drastic impact on a few of the properties here on Clark Road.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keenan. Thank you for your comments. Is there another person? Okay. Is it? Yes, I'm recognizing what I see. That's test 2. Could you state your name and address, and we'll unmute you in just a minute. Okay. You need to unmute now, please, sir.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
I'm sorry for test 2, but it's a problem with my computer. My name's Richard Simonelli, and I live in the corner of Adams Avenue and Howard Street, just a corner down from Lenny's house. And I've lived there longer than Lenny, actually. I've been there since probably 1952. I don't know. And I want to echo a lot of the issues that Lenny brought up, and the previous person brought up. First of all, one of the issues I have is this is the first I've ever seen of this plan, and you supposedly had neighborhood meetings and everything. I know of none of them, and I keep my ear to the ground pretty much on a lot of this stuff, so I don't know what went on. But that's one issue. If I had a choice, I'd like to see the old school preserved in some way. It fits the neighborhood. You know, a good architect can work things in. They can do an awful lot of stuff to get around the things that you mentioned can't be done with it. The other issue is, like Lenny said, you flipped the whole layout 180 degrees. Now, that does a lot of things for lifestyle. The playground end of the property is noisy, especially in the spring when you have Little League season. Okay, parking builds up in that end too, I think, as Lenny mentioned. So now you're going to flip it around. What's going to happen? Well, people at the other end of the school end of the property, they paid for homes that are in a quieter area than the playground end of it. And I'm sure that their property value, their price, and their taxes reflect that. Now what you're doing is you're bringing the noise to them and to us, while you're bringing quietness to the other end of the homes on the other end, where they paid less for and been paying less taxes all these years because it was noisier. So is that really a fair thing to do? And it's just gonna cause an awful lot of lifestyle problems. The people that live up in the back there, at one end, they get a pretty good view of the city. Now they're gonna get the back of a building. People at the other end, now they're gonna get to overlook the ball fields. As far as the ball fields that are up there, by the way, I played ball up there. I'm sure you did as well, Lenny. We played there we played all kinds of things in all kinds of seasons, and the playgrounds were not a swamp. They were fine playgrounds. The ground was fine. I think one of the problems you might be having with that area is, for a while, the city turned that into a snow dump. Probably about 10 years ago, when we had some heavy snow, they were bringing the snow up there, and they were piling it up to melt up there. Of course, it turned into a swamp. Now, there's another issue, too. with moving the playgrounds down. I noticed that when, I've always seen it, when they have Little League in the spring, the cars tend to park along Derby Street towards Waltham. You flip that around and the cars are going to start parking from the playground that you're going to put in over to the Cherry Street intersection. That Cherry Street intersection should not be tinkered with. That is probably one of the most dangerous intersections in the city. My mother and I had a head-on collision there. One of my cousins ended up getting hit and put into the front yard of the Conroy property. The guy on the other corner, he's got two of the other corners have stone walls, and they're all cracked and and remortared because cars have been slammed into them. And then the piece de resistance is on the other corner. A guy had to put a guardrail in his yard. And last summer, I think it was last summer when they had somebody, two cars that hit the guardrail somehow or another. So that's a very bad intersection to be stuffing cars towards. And then as far as your overflow parking and all of your other parking problems, we were very involved back in the late 80s. No, it was the early 80s in building up Howard Street. That was a dirt road. There were all kinds of plans to do all kinds of things and put a cul-de-sac in, run it all the way through. The city spent about 2 years fighting over that street and how they were going to do it. So it ended up being a dead end, which it should be. And it's basically a parking lot. My area is a parking lot for the Franklin School. You can't get through here anytime at pick up and drop off time. Getting out of my driveway, for some reason, they all like to park right across from my driveway. And they don't care. They just see you standing there and they just park and walk away. So that's where your cars are going to end up, all end up down here. And then we ask about, what about all of the traffic, the buses and all that sort of thing. Right now, the buses, and I think they usually 2 of them come swinging down Pershing Street, take a left turn on Adams Avenue and head out to Cherry Street, and as does all the other traffic. It's terrible in the wintertime. It can be very bad in the wintertime. It's only going to exacerbate the problem the way you have things set up. It's not thought out at all. And in one time there was a plan to turn Adams Avenue into a one-way street. Remember that, Lenny?
Mr. Simonelli, could I ask you to wrap up?
Yeah, well, my wrap up is that I think this thing has to be thought out better. And I think you ought to include the neighbors and not just the immediate abutters, but the other people on Pershing, Grant Street, Adams Avenue, this whole area, because we bear the brunt of the school.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, you're welcome.
I don't see any other hands up and there's no one else in the room. So could I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
Well, okay.
Go ahead. Word three.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So we'll bring it into committee. Does any committee members have any other questions or concerns? We do have yes, please.
I just had one question about the parking capacity on the site right now, as compared to what's being proposed. It was 60 on the site and then 30 off-site. Is that the numbers?
Josh, you wanna?
Yep, so roughly, so on parking, I should have added before, because this might be where you're going, Counselor. Roughly, we're gonna have the same parking spaces in the new project that we have there now, organized better, but about the same. And the staff are already parking in the neighborhood, so they would continue to do so. But through the project, we would take a hard look at the parking management plan to make sure that we're putting them in the right places. Because we want to make sure, like with all our projects, we're not overburdening one area, one street.
And the only other question I had was about the finishes. Has that been completely designated? Like remember how he was proposing different, types? Is that still suspended right now, or is it?
Yeah, we're going to continue to study that for probably the next 3 months or so. So that's not set in stone. Those are concepts. It's funny, some people love them, other people not so much. So we'll continue to refine it to try to find to try to strike the right balance there.
And lastly, is there any homage to the existing school? It's got a very distinctive look. And I don't know, is there any plan? Like I know with Angier, they took a medallion and it was put into the wall. I don't know if any of the, because there's quite a bit now. There's a steeple, there's quite a few in terms of the two buildings. Is there anything that's going to be done, for homage for the existing school?
Yeah, so there's a couple things I would point out. One, we will of course have our historical inventory, and we will anything that we can salvage and incorporate into the new design, we will. I don't think the cupola will be included there. That's quite the undertaking. But what we're trying to do in the design is use that center stair tower to try to mimic that look without it being a full cupola. And part of what we're playing with is the building materials there. Do they want to be as soft or more neutral? Does it want to be more bold to make a statement? Those are the things I think you'll see us play with the design review committee and the community as we move forward.
Just all set? Okay. Thank you very much, Josh. So there is a motion to approve from our counselor from Ward 3.
This is for site plan approval.
Yes, this is for
The
558 schematic design and site plan approval for 125 Derby Street for the renovation expanding to demolish and replace the existing Franklin School with the new school. I did read it into the record already.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure we're doing two votes.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing two votes. We'll be voting on the 558 first, and then we'll vote on the appropriation of the funding.
So this is just for schematic design and site plan approval?
Yes, it is. So there's a motion to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any nays?
Opposed?
One opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Absent, right?
What was that?
Absent.
And then there's one absent. That's correct. Okay, thank you very much. So the next item is 24124, and this is the appropriation of the $72,608,506, and authorize the general obligation borrowing of the equal amount for the construction of the Franklin School project, and authorization to apply any premium received from the sale of the bonds or notes, less the operating cost of preparing, issuing, marketing them, and any accrued interest received upon the delivery of the bonds or notes to the cost. This is a long one, to the cost of the project, and to reduce the amount authorized to be borrowed for the project by like amount. The amount authorized to be borrowed by and under this order shall be reduced to the extent that any grants are received by the city from the Massachusetts School Building Authority for this project. Any questions from the committee? If none, can I get a motion? I'm looking at the Ward 3 counselor.
Yeah, sorry, I was just reading all those words that you just read out loud. So moved.
So moved. Okay, so there's a motion to approve. All those in favor?
Madam Chair,
Yes, yes. Ms.
before we vote, I just want, this is gonna be coming to finance
Yes.
in July, so at this point, I'm gonna abstain until I have a chance to ask a few of the financial questions in finance, but I certainly have every intent to vote for the item there and on the full council.
Okay, so we'll understand that Council Gentile will be abstaining on this one. Okay, motion to approve. All those in favor? Please say
Aye.
Aye. One abstention,
Yep.
one absent. Okay, we're all set with that.
We do the last one first, just to get out of the way on this agreement this year.
The appointment?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
the reappointment.
Oh, he's not.
He's not here. Yeah. So we're gonna go to the National Grid petition for a grant of completion on Richardson Street. This is item 25024. I will recognize the NGRID representative, Mary Mulroney, I believe is here.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
National Grid, this is a petition for the location to install and maintain approximately 480 feet of 12-inch coated steel main across the Center Street Bridge in Newton, Mass, over I-90, also known as Washington Street. National Grid has MassDOT and MWRA permits for the bridge. National Grid is requesting a grant of location for proposed new main tie-in to existing regulator station at 32 Richardson Street in Newton, approximately a 20 by 10 by 5, and to tie into the existing 12-inch bare steel main at 371 Washington Street in Newton. That opening is approximately a 10 by 6 by 5.
Thank you, Ms. Mulroney. So this came before the committee, June 5th. It was held 8-0. The public hearing was closed. Is there any discussion from the committee on that?
Madam Chair, we have some guests from National Grid tonight. Amy Smith has brought with her some other people, and 2 or 3 of them will be able to speak to the questions that we had on this item.
Okay, so are you suggesting we lay this on the table and go to the next item?
Well, we can take this up first. I think that the people that some of her guests will speak directly to this item. So I think it would be fine to take it up now.
Okay. That's fine. I was planning to just go through the questions that were sent in. So do folks, do the folks here, like, if you have a specific question, we have experts from Grid who are here to answer questions.
I would like them to answer the questions that were previously submitted first to hear.
We hear from them, Madam Chair.
Yes, let's hear from the Grid representatives.
Oh, good evening, everybody. I'm Amy Smith. I work at National Grid, and I'm happy to be here tonight to answer your questions. I also have with me Melissa Owens and Mark Riley as well, who may be able to answer any questions that I am not able to. So if you'd like, I'll just start with the first question and go through the rest of them and answer.
Get your title and the titles of your colleagues as well, please.
Sure. I'm Amy Smith. I'm a director in our gas business. And with me is Melissa Owens. And Melissa, what is your exact job title?
I'm the manager of the Public Works Department at National Grid.
Thank you. And Mark Riley, your title as well?
Hi, I'm Assistant General Counsel.
Great.
And Ms. Smith, you're the director of, what was that?
I'm a director within our gas business.
The whole business.
That's my title is director. I do all other duties as assigned. I don't have a specific, a more specific title, but I do work typically on a lot of gas leak issues, GSEP, and on future gas and our DPU 2080 order, which a few people on the phone may be familiar with as well. So I'm prepared to speak to answer your questions about this specific project and the granted location. And later on, I'll be speaking to you about gas leaks.
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess we have some specific questions regarding this granted location on Richardson Street. Would you like to go ahead?
Do you have them listed?
I do have a list of questions.
They've already submitted.
Yeah.
So could they just address the?
You want to go through, Ms. Smith, and address?
Yeah, I do.
That might be the most way to do it.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'll go through the ones that were pre-submitted, and please stop me if in the middle of a response, if you have some follow-up or additional questions, or if something isn't clear. So the first question you had is, this is a new granted location, and overall scope has not apparently been in National Grid's GSEP plans. Why is this work being proposed if it's not an emergency, and why has it not appeared in the plan submitted to DPU? So this is actually not a GSEP job. This is part of our Pipes on Bridges program. Typically GSEP work is not for exposed pipe, it's for our buried pipe. And this type of work does not require any sort of pre-approval from DPU or pre-submission of a list of work. The way things work here in Massachusetts with our capital projects are we determine what work we need to do, we go ahead and do the work. And then once we've completed the work, the next time we have a rate case filing, we ask the department to start recovering the cost of those jobs. And at that time, we have to demonstrate the prudency of picking the project and the prudency of the spending associated with it. So I'll just stop after that one. Any questions about that?
Get this straight, you do the work and then you go to the rate authority and say, allow us to charge more money for the work we just did.
Right, for all the capital projects in a rate case. So once every 5 years, we come in and collect it.
Ever get
Geez.
turned down?
Excuse me, yeah, I was just gonna say GSEP projects, we go in on an annual basis. We show them a list of work we plan to do. We come back a year later and we show them the work we actually completed.
Do you ever
So
get
it works a little differently.
Yeah. Do you ever get turned down?
If we have demonstrated that the work was necessary and that we can properly control cost, the work gets approved. So in my history, I know of only one project ever where we were questioned on it. We were still allowed to recover the cost, but the DPU had made some adjustments. But yep.
Just want to be clear.
Sure.
In your tenure on the job,
Mhm.
you have never gotten turned down for a single project. When you start costs,
Yes,
correct?
correct. Yes, no, we have never been, we have never had a job that's been determined that we went forward that was not considered to be prudent.
How long have you been in your position, ma'am?
I've been with National Grid about 34 years.
And during your entire tenure, you do not recall a single time the state turned you down?
I have probably been doing this sort of work since around 2010, and that is correct. That is because we go through a very rigorous process to select the work, and we have cost control processes in place to execute the work. DPU reviews and approves. It goes through a pretty rigorous process.
Just listen to my question, please. Thank you. I just want to be clear, I'm not finding fault with you at all, but I'm just trying to get the record. You've obviously done a great job because you persuaded the rate authorities to approve everything, but just for our record, 14 years, and the state has never, ever turned down a single request.
Again, we had one request where, and it was based on some repair work we had to do from some pipe that was installed in 1940 and 1950 by a legacy company. And at that time, we could not produce all of the paperwork associated with it. So they allowed us to recover the cost, but they did not allow us to earn a return on that investment. And that's the one instance in my experience where they recognized the work needed to be done, but they felt there was some issues because of the fact that we could not find some paperwork from the 40s and 50s.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about that, about the GSEP inclusion? Okay. I will go to the next question then, which was submitted, is why abandon the 1964 12-inch 22 PSI bare steel main on one side of the bridge to construct a new main on the other side? Why not line it? Since they've already done that in the Circle of Death, I assume that's the rotary. Oh, hang on a second. Right, why not line it? And so I'm going to take that one in two parts. So first, I'm going to talk about why the pipe, what needed to be installed on the opposite side of the bridge. So the main that we're replacing is what we call a critical main. It provides service to over 5,000 customers in Newton, and it cannot be taken out of service until the new main is in service. And given that fact, there's just isn't enough room on the side of the bridge where the existing pipe is to hang the new pipe and the supports for the new pipe. And so it had to be installed on the other side of the bridge to allow us to continue to provide service during construction to the 5,000 plus people who are receiving gas that's coming on the main across that bridge. So just pause there. Any questions about that?
You're gonna follow up, and I have a question too. I'll see if you answer it.
Well, so shouldn't use the word testimony. Your statement, ma'am, is that it is not physically feasible to reline the pipe because doing so would disrupt service to 5,000 customers?
So that's the second part. I haven't talked about the lining yet. But the first part is it's the reason why the pipe had to be located on the new pipe is on the other side of the bridge, that we couldn't install it on the same side of the bridge as the existing pipe. That was the first part of the question. And that's
because physically, what you're telling us is there literally is not room for two pipes to be side by side at the same time.
Yes, you've got it. It's pretty simple, right? So, and we can't take the old main out of service during construction. So, which is a great roll into the question about why we can't line the pipe. Because to line the pipe, we would also have to take it out of service. To do that, we cannot line live pipe. So there are three reasons really why we can't line the pipe, and that's one of them. And disrupting service to 5,000 customers for an extended period of time is just not acceptable. I don't think anybody would want to be without. It is summer, but many people, in addition to heat, will be using gas for hot water, for example, and not being able to take a hot shower or cook a meal during our construction period. I think most people would find that to be unacceptable. And it's also a very complex process to shut down 5,000 customers, do work, and then restore the service to them. It's a long process. It's very disruptive. People have to be home in order for us to shut the gas off, and they have to be home for us to turn the gas back on. So typically, we try and do our work in a way where we don't have to disrupt large number of customers. With smaller jobs, it might be 2 or 3 customers or 5 customers. It's easy enough to work with a small number of them for a shutdown, but 5,000 is a bit beyond the limit. So that'd be the first reason why. The second reason is truly the condition of this pipe. The old pipe is heavily corroded. It's got gaps in it. It's got some holes in it. You just couldn't, it would just not be good practice to line pipe in that condition. There's nothing for the liner to adhere to in some places. And in some places, the liner would be exposed to the elements, and that would leave it subject to damage just from weather or other types of activity. And in addition, because the pipe is corroded, once corrosion starts, and trust me, I am not the subject matter expert here, but what I can tell you is it just continues, right? If you've ever seen a piece of metal that's corroded, it doesn't get less corroded over time. The corrosion just sort of spreads, and we can predict with some degree of certainty at which point the pipe would no longer be fit for service at all. And so we try and get the work done before that is the case. And this pipe in particular has been leaking for a while. It's in a very difficult location to execute repairs. And again, if lining were possible, if we could do it, we absolutely would consider it. But the condition of the pipe doesn't allow for it. Again, we can't take the pipe out of service. And then the final reason is there are bends in the pipe, right? It's not just a straight run of pipe, but as it comes up on and off of the bridge, the pipe bends. And that also makes it very difficult to insert a lining, because where the pipe bends, it's actually too narrow to get the liner through. And so we're just not able to line pipe that has bends in it like the pipe on this bridge does. And so for those reasons, we've pursued the replacement option.
Councilor Danberg, do you have a question?
Thank you. Yes. My question, I apologize, is on the previous question, but I didn't have a chance to ask it. You mentioned that on one occasion you received your recovery of costs, but that you were not allowed to make a profit on your investment.
Correct.
I don't understand, number one, how it can be an investment if your costs were recovered. That's not, I'm not sure what your definition of investment is.
Right.
You don't have to answer that.
Okay. I'm happy to answer it, but if you don't want me to, that's fine.
Clarify, yes.
Yeah, so it's really, so when we make a capital investment, which is as opposed to doing maintenance work, when we do maintenance work, it's what we call operating costs, right? We expend the money it's recovered through our base rates that we get approved in a rate case, and we don't get, if we spend more money on maintenance, we don't get more money through rates. If we spend less money on maintenance, they don't lower our rates. We just sort of have a fixed amount in between rate cases that we can spend on maintenance. For capital investments, for long-term investments, we're allowed to recover the cost of construction, and because we have to finance the work, we're allowed to earn a reasonable return on that investment. And so that's just part of the typical regulatory rate making process here, and is in every state. It's Massachusetts is no different that way. And when we go in for a rate case, the rate of return we're allowed to earn is reviewed very closely. Sometimes it's adjusted up, sometimes it's adjusted down based on market issues, based on risk associated with the investments that we make. And so it's a pretty significant amount of money we were not allowed to recover in this one particular instance. And again, it was due to the lack of paperwork on the original installation of the pipe at that time. So
The amount that you were not allowed to recover is a very significant amount.
Mhm.
What is that percentage? Allowed to
yeah, I don't have that. I don't have the exact numbers handy. It wasn't a pre-submitted question, but it's in the millions of dollars. Yeah.
Could you wait till Councilor Danberg finishes
Yeah,
asking her question?
yeah.
Oh, I'm very sorry. There's a lot of thunder and lightning here, and I didn't realize she hadn't finished talking. My apologies.
Yeah,
We're getting it here too.
Okay, all right. I'm so sorry. It's hard to hear.
All right, just let me finish. And what is the delta between the percentage profit allowed and the percentage interest that you had to pay?
So again, I'm happy to answer that as a follow-up if you want to send it to me. That is information that I just would not have handy. I'd have to go to the subject matter experts from our finance and rates area to get the specifics on that.
Any of your colleagues able to answer that question, Ms. Smith?
No, they would not be prepared to. I was not prepared to talk to rate making tonight. So but I can give you some specific details. I just can't give them to you right now.
Okay.
But we do know that it's a significant amount in profit that you were not allowed.
Yes. Yeah, it was a specific amount. And again, it was due to lack of paperwork from installation by a company that we had acquired that was done during the 1940s and 1950s. So it was a sort of very isolated situation. It wasn't because the work didn't need to be done, right? It was just because we could not provide all of the paperwork.
Well, we'll continue on with the next question then.
Okay, terrific. All right, let me let's go back here. All right, so I think I went through the reasons on lining, and so I just wanted to stop there as well and to make sure that in case there were any follow-up questions or there was something that wasn't clear about my response there.
Well, Ms. Smith, I believe that you lined the other pipe that goes over the highway a few years back. And I think you gave a lot of explanation about why this one couldn't be lined.
Correct.
But however,
Yeah.
the other one, was the other one not in as bad condition? It was straighter, it didn't have.
Yeah. Again, I don't know, Melissa, would you happen to have that? Or maybe if you point me to what the specific project was where this occurred, or maybe Melissa is familiar with it. If anyone is, it would be.
I am not. I could look into that specifics. They may have not needed to extend beyond any elbows, and that could have been why, would be my guess. But not all pipes are created the same, and not all concerns are the same. So it may have been just a more viable candidate for lining.
Why don't we continue with the questions that were submitted to you?
Okay. All right. I went through that one. Okay, I think we went through the lining. The next question I have was some specific details about the project. And so I will go through that. The first one was the proposed timeframe for completion. The proposed timeframe for completion, the current schedule estimates approximately 5 months to complete the project. The portion of the work on I-90 and across the railroad tracks may require a little additional time depending on access and if there are any work hour restrictions that are imposed. And as and with any given project, we monitor the schedule pretty closely. If we're falling a little bit behind, we see if we can extend work hours during the day so that we can get it done on time. And even sometimes we wind up being a little ahead of schedule. And so, but within 5 months, the project will be complete. Second question was on the type of materials. We're going to be installing 480 feet of 12-inch 15 by 50 mils Prytech coated steel pipe over the span of the bridge, and then 20 feet of 16-inch galvanized steel pipe for the abutment walls. There'll be 2 new 12-inch steel ball valves that'll be installed at the north and south tie-in locations so that we can properly sectionalize the proposed main within the bridge crossing. Is there a project mitigation plan as applicable? National Grid has assigned and experienced personnel and contractor crews to the job, including full-time National Grid supervision to oversee the work. We have daily job briefings. We have a traffic management plan in place, which we review daily to ensure the safe execution of the project. We do maintain a 3-week schedule look ahead to review and monitor progress. And again, if necessary, we do have some ability to adapt work hours so that we can adhere to the schedule and complete the work as planned. The only variable sometimes is weather. So there are certain conditions like rain, like this, or thunder and lightning where we wouldn't be working. And the final question that I have here is, what is the street reconstruction plan? The street reconstruction plan, including the timetable for completion. Final restoration will be completed at the end of the job to restore the roads and sidewalks in accordance with Newton's guidelines. And the road will have temporary paving to allow it to settle over the winter. And then after the winter season, we'll come back and we will do the final paving in 2025, right? Just not advisable to do final paving heading into the winter. Can compromise the integrity of the paving at that time. So we do the temp and at late summer, early fall, and then the following spring, we come back and pave. And I think that concludes all the pre-submitted questions on the granted location.
What about the question about Mario, COO of Progressive Pipeline, states that minor bends are no problem for lining. It's only the 90-degree corners that are problematic for lining. Can you describe the number and angle of pipe bends in the project? I have that on my list as submitted.
I apologize, I did not receive that question, but if you can send it to me, we can get you back a response in writing quickly if you'd like. That was not on my list. I apologize, but
that's Ward 1. I have a list of questions that weren't submitted.
Yeah, Cassidy or Susan, did I miss that question? I apologize if I did completely. I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, well, I sent you questions, and also Scott sent you questions. So I don't know if that made the list, Councilor Leary.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this was in our packet. So, and then another question was, a 2021 or 2022 lining appears to have been performed on this same bridge. Was it on the same or different pipe from the one that is proposed to be abandoned? And why was it acceptable for that project but not this? I think that was getting to my question earlier that I.
Right, and I think, and Melissa, I don't know if that earlier question you could shed a little light, but we would be, we can probably get you some fairly quick responses to those. I don't know the specifics of the other project. To Melissa's point, though, not all pipe is the same. And if we were able to line a segment of pipe on the bridge, it is because it exhibited different conditions on the pipe. The bends might have been different, or may not have had any bends or angles that would impact it. Or it may have just been the condition of the pipe in that segment would have been able to be lined.
Why don't you could come back with the answers to those 2 questions then if you didn't get them beforehand, that's fair. And Councilor Laredo has a question.
Ms. Smith, I just want to understand something here, okay?
Of course.
You just finished telling us a few minutes ago that to reline a pipe that services a large group of folks is a very difficult, probably impossible task. Because you have to shut down gas power to all those folks, right?
Correct. In this instance with the critical main, that it would be a very large number of people. There might be other pieces of pipe that we would line where we'd have to shut down a small number of customers in order to complete that job. And we would approach those customers individually and work with them on the shutdown.
That gets to my next question, okay? I think Councilor Chair Leary just asked you about another relining project that apparently was successfully done. So when you come back to us, either in written form or when you come in to present again, would you explain to us what was different about that project that allowed for a successful reline? And I understand it might have been that it only affected 3 houses. I have no idea. But before we take at face value that you can't just interrupt service to reline, I think we want to know what was done with that other project.
Yeah, no, it's a very fair question, and without knowing the specific project you're speaking about, it's hard to respond. It's hard to respond and make sure that I'm giving you accurate information if I don't know the specific project. So if you can send us, if Susan or Cassidy can send those questions to me or whomever, we'll take a look and we'll see if we can identify which projects you might have been referring to and why we're able to do lining on that.
Ms. Smith, just so you understand, it's not just, to be clear, it's not just this particular project that we're concerned about in the city. We have many more general concerns, and I think we're trying to use this project, if I can speak for my colleagues, as a learning vehicle, a learning tool. Why are you able to do some things but not others? When we have other requests in the future to put in new pipe, we can in an informed manner say, well, wait a minute, maybe you ought to reline here instead. And that's all.
Yeah, no, those are really fair questions. And in fact, we're happy to share our knowledge with you about this. I can tell you a few things up front that so you can understand how it is we plan work and we decide how we're going to execute that work. And to be very clear, right, we, first and foremost, we've got many competing objectives here, but we want to maintain safety and reliability of our system. And so for the most part, the types of pipe, I know that you're most concerned with us being able to line and perhaps not install new pipe. At times, they're just not it's that leak prone pipe, it's the GSEP pipe, right? And oftentimes the bare steel in that program is in similar poor condition to this pipe. And so lining it is not advisable. With cast iron, right, with the cast iron pipe, we can only line cast iron pipe that is 16 inches in diameter or larger. And that's not actually GSEP pipe. That pipe doesn't go through GSEP program. It's not considered leak prone due to its size.
Ms. Smith,
But, yep.
Ms. Smith, again, you have your job to do, and we as the approval authority have our job to do. And so we need to be able to give information that you're going to do it one way, but we have a fiduciary obligation to our residents to make sure that that makes sense for our city. So that's why we're going to continue to ask you these questions.
Right. And I'm happy to spend as much time to bring other experts in to talk about this. We want you to feel comfortable with the answers that you're giving us. I have a small concern that this is the project that you're picking for the learning decision. It's a very small portion of a much larger project on a critical main in poor condition over the Mass Pike, providing service to over 5,000 customers. And there are millions of people who are driving near and by and under that bridge, over the course of a year, who are also, for which there's risk associated with that pipe remaining in service. And so anything we can do to help you feel comfortable with the responses that we're giving, we are happy to do. And if there's some way to progress this project, but with a commitment to sit down maybe and go through these types of decision-making processes with you so that you understand and are comfortable and can help inform you when you make future requests, I can put that offer out to you. Happy to coordinate the right people internally maybe come in, sit down and have a discussion and, ask as many questions as you like.
Go ahead.
Yes, quick question, I hope.
And Ms. Smith, if you could be a little more succinct with your answers, that would be helpful.
Yes, what is the lifespan of new pipe that you would expect to put in? Until, if we were to install it in 2025, let's say, how long would this pipe have a useful lifespan?
I don't know, Melissa, I don't know if you know, just from an engineering perspective, new steel pipe, what the expected life is.
About 100 years.
Well past our action plan.
That's right.
Yes, well past all of our action plans, I hope.
Yes, yes, and it doesn't mean it would be in service for 100 years. It means that the condition of the pipe would be acceptable to be in
Okay.
service for 100 years.
Be a larger question that I would maybe ask for at another time. But what is NGRA doing with regarding to managed retreat and the ultimate retirement of methane gas lines to meet our climate action goals that's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has by 2050? Now, and I would be helpful if your GSEP participant, I think it was Steve who was at those meetings, could at some point discuss about that. But that's not a question I submitted before, so I'm not expecting you to answer it
Yeah.
today.
That's that.
Questions that we did submit to you for tonight, okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. And that's a long discussion, and we're working on our climate compliance plans. Every gas company will be filing them on April 1st of 2025, where we're going to lay out exactly what we're going to do to meet the state's goals. So maybe closer to sometime early next year to come back and talk about, as these plans are being developed and evolved, what those look like.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. I think those were the end of the questions for this particular item. And I'm going to read into the record item 177. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Kelly.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Did you?
I just have a couple of quick comments, actually.
Okay.
One is, I'm sorry that the questions that were submitted didn't all get to you. It sounds like Chair Albright submitted them and Cassidy submitted them, and it really, I don't know where that glitch was, because that would have made things go much more smoothly tonight. It's not your fault either, but why I hear your slight frustration that we might be picking on this one project and not moving forward fast enough in order to learn something bigger. But I'm likening it to the example you gave us earlier of the one project that you didn't get fully papered because the paperwork was not in order. I don't think we can proceed until we have answers to these questions so that we feel fully informed. As President Laredo was saying, that's our responsibility to the citizens. We need to fully understand before making a decision. And the only other comment I was going to make to the committee, it feels to me like we're moving in a direction of holding this, is I wonder if there are any members of the public who came tonight who might want to make questions or comments about what they've heard tonight.
So we weren't going to do that this evening.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because we did get questions submitted by the
Okay.
public.
Or
and-
responses, now that we've heard more from Ms. Smith, I wondered if some of those people, but okay.
We're going to continue with questions that were submitted, to be
Okay.
fair.
Nope, that is fine. Where, again, whatever information we can give you as quickly as we can give you, there is an urgency associated with this project. I do not mean to imply you shouldn't do your job. Of course you should. And the citizens of Newton are fortunate that you're there to do your job. We just want to make sure we can get you, if to the extent this is new or different information that is going to be helpful to you. Happy to do that. Before you approve the project, after you approve the project, just asking if we can move with a little bit of urgency here, because this is critical work that needs to be completed, and it's a very small piece.
Thank you. Let me read into if there's no more questions on this item.
I actually have a question, Councilor Leary.
Please go ahead, Councilor Albright.
So our next meeting as a committee is July 10th. And that won't go to the full council until the August meeting, August 12th, I think it is. So I just want you to I just want all of us to understand that this item won't be approved until our August meeting. So I'm asking you, Ms. Smith, from a national grid perspective, what does that do to your plans?
Well, obviously, that would delay completion of the job. We wouldn't know whether we'd be able to complete it until August. That would leave us with very little time before winter, before potentially bad weather sets in, and could extend the project into the following year. And again, the condition of the main is going to just continue to get worse. It represents a risk, again, of safety and reliability to the customers, and we very much would like to remove that risk and replace that pipe.
Ms. Smith,
And
what's the
state-
start, Ms. Smith, what, as we sit here today, what's your anticipated start date?
Melissa, do you know what the anticipated start date would be once we get the approval?
As soon as we can schedule a crew, basically.
So you haven't even scheduled a crew yet?
We can't schedule a crew without approval to work there. It's on the schedule. We're holding it until we have the approvals.
We're just trying to help you here, okay?
Yep.
I don't want to delay the project unnecessarily. So once we approve, assuming you get approval, how quickly can you schedule and get started?
This job, they wanted to start this week. So I would say as soon as we have approval, probably the following day or two.
Okay, and how long does it take to do the job?
5 months is what we estimated.
5 months. And you need to do it obviously before the onset of winter, I presume?
Correct.
I frankly am quite worried about delaying this project, and because if we don't approve it till August 12th as a council, that doesn't give them the 5 months before winter sets in.
Can I make a suggestion, Madam Chair?
Yes,
With your
Councilor.
permission? And
Please go
Councilor Albright, I'd be interested, Chair Albright, I'd be interested to see what you think about this. We could approve this subject to second call, which would allow us to decide this on July 8th, which would be the earliest you were gonna get this approved anyways, given tonight's meeting. But that would be conditioned, Ms. Smith, on full and complete answers in writing to our questions before then.
We can commit to that.
Is that acceptable to folks?
Acceptable, yes. I want to recognize Councilor Gentile, who's had his hand up.
Sorry.
Thank you. I was just going to say that I wasn't comfortable with the potential risk of delaying this. And I was gonna suggest something very similar to what President Laredo just did, that we move approval subject to second call. So he's already, I don't know if he's made the motion. If he has, great. If he hasn't, I'd be happy to.
You can make it, fine with me, go.
So I will make the motion to approve the item subject to second call, including the suggestion that we receive answers to the additional written questions in writing several days. I mean, we can put a date on it, prior to the meeting on the 8th, so that we have a chance to review them.
That'd be July 5th, I think.
So you want them for the Friday pack? All right, so subject to receipt of the answers to the additional questions no later than July the 5th.
Yep, no, we, as soon as we get the questions, and hopefully we'll have answers well before that we can submit to you. And would you like the original questions submitted in writing as well? I can do that too, so that you have them.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So why don't we vote on this item then? Since we completed the questions, and then we're gonna go on to the second item, which has additional questions. Okay, I'm just gonna break it up that way. And I will be saying that I will not be voting for any grants of location with methane gas until we have a citywide plan that includes managed retreat and ways to get off methane gas entirely. So.
And I have made the same statement.
And I will join that.
Okay, so the vote is a motion to approve with conditions, and subject to second call. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's 3 ayes. And, I'm a nay.
Susan?
I voted aye.
I'll abstain.
Okay. 2 abstentions.
That's an extension.
Okay, 2 abstentions, 1 nay.
Did you vote?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
said
she said
aye.
yes.
Then there's 4.
Yeah, there's
4.
4 ayes,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm reading it now.
I'm Susan. It's
Yeah.
Susan.
Did you get all our votes?
4 yeas, 2 opposed.
Abstention.
One
One
abstention and two.
opposed.
Yeah,
two
and
abstentions,
1
nay,
absent.
and one absent.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So let me read the second item into the record. This is 177-24, a discussion with National Grid regarding plans to fix gas leaks in Newton. Councilor Albright, on behalf of the Public Facilities Committee, requesting a discussion with National Grid about their plans, timetable, and methodology to correct gas leaks, including the viability of repair versus replacement of certain gas leaks. And I believe all those questions, I hope, were all submitted to you, Ms. Smith.
I have a lot of questions on gas leaks. So, and I just wanted to start off with your permission, just with a few basic facts about where we are with gas leaks in Newton right now, how many we have, receipts, repairs, so forth. And then I'll jump into the questions if that's acceptable.
Yes, sounds
Okay, terrific. So just want to start a little bit the way we look at our gas leaks and plan for repairs or main replacements in the upcoming years. We take a look at how many gas leaks we have in total at the end of any given year. And I took a look back for 5 years to 2019. And at that point in time, Newton had 863 gas leaks at the end of the year. Happy to report at the end of 2023, going into it, we have made significant progress at working those backlogs down. And we had 514 leaks of all types that were open, primarily grade 3 non-hazardous leaks at the end of 2023. And as of today, that number is down to 502. Of that total, there are 27 of them are the grade 3 SEIs or leaks with significant environmental impact. And I know there's a lot of interest in more detail about that. I'll get to that. And I think a lot of your questions go to the G3 SEIs as well. We're also taking a look at and monitoring the new leaks that we get in Newton year over year. And again, happy to report the number of new leaks has been dropping pretty much year over year. Back in 2019, we got 630 new leaks. And in 2023, the last complete year, that total, we only discovered 304 new leaks. And that really, a lot of that is due to the progress of replacing the leak-prone pipe with pipe that is not leaking. We've repaired over 3,100 leaks in Newton in total over the last 5 years. And of those leaks, about 59 of them were classified in that G3 SEI category. Again, progress was kind of when we started out repairing grade 3 SEIs, when we first had to designate them and schedule them for repair. We had over 100 of them in Newton. And again, as of today, there are 27 in total. And so with that, I know there's some specific questions about it. So I'm going to jump to the pre-submitted questions. And again, stop me if something is not clear here. And so the first question is, under what circumstance do you reline or repair pipes? And under what circumstance is it not possible? Is it less expensive, the same, or costlier to reline or to replace? And so a lot of that is dependent. So the first thing is when grade 1 leaks, right? Those are the most hazardous leaks that we find, we repair them immediately. Grade 2 leaks are leaks that are not yet hazardous, but are expected to become hazardous within 12 months. And we repair those on a timeline of between 6 to 12 months of when we identify them. For grade 3 leaks, the rules changed in 2018. So any grade 3 leak we found before 2018, we're allowed to not repair that leak, but to wait until we replace or retire the main to eliminate the leak, because those leaks are not hazardous. Although I recognize that they're still gas leaks and the gas odor is problematic. And then we have grade 3 leaks that were found on January 1st, 2018 or later. Those leaks must be repaired within 8 years, or the main needs to be replaced within 8 years. And then we have the G3 SEIs, and those are leaks where what we call the leak extent, which is really the migration area of the gas leak, is measured to be 2,000 square feet or greater. And there's a subcategory of large SEI leaks where the leak extent area is 10,000 feet or more. For grade 3 SEIs, for the smaller ones, they must be repaired within 2 years, or if we are going to replace the main within 3 years, we don't need to repair it and we eliminate the leak through replacement. For the larger grade 3 SEIs, we need to fix those within 12 months or to replace the main within 2 years. And that's all per law and per regulation. And so when we determine whether or not we're going to do repairs or we're going to replace main, right? First and foremost, we're looking at safety, we're looking at emissions impacts, and we're selecting first the main that needs to be replaced the soonest, the riskiest pipe, what we call type 1 risk, meaning that the pipe could potentially fail within a shorter period of time and potentially could cause catastrophic incident. And so it's critical that we schedule that main for replacement as soon as we can. And then there's other main where the condition is poor, but repairs could be made over a period of time, and we could delay the replacement of that main until it starts exhibiting characteristics of riskier main, and then we would schedule it for repair. Now, one thing that's going to be different next year, and I think this is something that we can talk more about when we come in and talk about our long-term plans, is starting with all of our GSEP pipe next year, we're going to be doing an evaluation for every segment, what the options are in terms of replacement for that segment of leak-prone pipe, right? There'll be some main, we have to get it out of the ground quickly. The quickest, least expensive thing that we can do to reduce the risk is to put new main in. But there may be other main that we could wait, and that gives us the opportunity to consider alternatives, which would include retiring the pipe, asking the customers to electrify, right? Either, with air source or ground source heat pump. And that's really, that is the way it's going to be with GSEP going forward, right? So the default answer is not going to always be replace old pipe with new pipe, but in fact, we need to evaluate every segment. In Newton, this is the challenge here, right? And we're again, I think this is going to be a lot of great conversation we can have going forward. It's not just National Grid that can make this decision in a vacuum about whether or not we would retire the pipe, right? We do repairs until we could get rid of the pipe. We need all the customers served by that pipe to agree to become electrified, to perhaps do work in their home and expend money to change out their appliances for all electric, maybe do some duct work in their house, energy efficiency, whatever might be needed. And so we need to work with each customer. So we can't take the main out of service unless 100% of customers on that segment agree to the electrification. And we also need to work with Eversource, who supplies electricity in your town, to make sure there's sufficient electric capacity that when customers do choose to go from gas to electric, that there's sufficient electricity for them. And so our plans are also dependent on Eversource's plans to upgrade electric system. So between all of us, your citizens, and Eversource, right, we've got a lot of planning to do going forward to make sure that we can meet our emission reduction goals, our energy efficiency plan. So I hope that answered your question. I know there was a lot of information there, but it's important to see that this is evolving over time, and the way those decisions are getting made is evolving over time as well.
Yes, we're part of all these decisions too. We just voted an electrification ordinance in on Monday.
Mhm. Oh, great, terrific. We were waiting to see what was going to happen with that, because I know you're going to participate in the 10-town pilot for banning new natural gas connections.
Yes.
Right. So that's great news. So we'll be working together on that as well. So
are there any questions from the committee, or can we move on to the next question? Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next question, Ms. Smith.
Okay, the next question. All right, let me just make sure. I think we covered everything there. Okay. All right, in the first quarter of 2023, National Grid was unusually effective in reducing leak extent in Newton. What prevents National Grid from repeating success in each quarter? In Newton, we are very concerned about gas leaks with their risks to health and safety and their contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. Newton appears to have a higher density of leaks measured by leak extent per square mile than any other municipality in Massachusetts. See attached. So first, yes, we were actually quite fortunate in Q1 of 2023, which is the winter months, January, February, and March. We had a mild winter. We do not typically plan to do this type of work during the winter because there are digging moratoriums in place, and typically only emergency work is allowed to progress. But we were able to work with Newton and get permits during those months. Again, the weather was favorable, and we were just able to pull forward leaks that we would have repaired later in the year and get them repaired during the first quarter. What prevents us from working at that? There are a couple things at that level. So first, those were also all leaks that were on schedule for that year that needed to be repaired, right? And so what we do is we build work plans to get all of our work accomplished in Newton and in the other 143 cities and towns in which we operate in Massachusetts. We need to make sure that our resources are allocated and our work is planned so that we get any work, first and foremost, any safety related work, which includes significant amount of compliance work. We have a lot of federal and state requirements that dictate certain types of work have to be done every year. And we also have to leave room in our schedule to repair grade 1 leaks, which are emergency leaks, right? On the day that we find them, we have to repair them immediately. And so we can't fully load up our schedule with other work that is not yet due for compliance to make sure that we're leaving room to do the compliance work. And so it's a matter of balancing all of our work across the territory. But for example, if we didn't get a lot of grade 1 leaks and we had leak repair crews available in Newton, we would take a look at what other leaks we have on the books, and we would actually try and get the grade 2s and the G3 SEIs done sooner than their actual due dates as well. So that's, if you look at how many leaks we fix year over year, 2023 was a pretty average year for grade 3 SEI leak repairs. It's just that we did more work in that first quarter due to opportunity.
Thank you very much. I think the mayor prodded you guys a little bit into that. I was told by our
You did.
has as many as 7, was it 3 to 4 grade 1 leaks a week in Newton. So that does keep you busy. Some of them have been discovered by our own residents.
Mm-hmm. And we, and again, we're thankful that they call them in, and so they come out and address them immediately. We do regular leak survey in the area, and because you have a lot of cast iron as well, there's extra leak survey that takes place during the year. So we try and proactively identify so we can actually schedule and maybe not have to do them as emergencies. But you do have a lot of leak prone pipe in Newton, right? There's about 200 more miles of pipe within the city of Newton that needs to be replaced. And until that, or I could say retired, right? Until that main is taken out of service, it's going to continue. It's just going to continue to leak. We fix one leak and it leaks, and another leak is going to pop up on that main. And so retirement is really the only way to ensure that you're not getting these new leaks.
Which is rather lengthy, number 3.
Yes. Okay. So number 3 is National Grid has been prioritizing expensive replacement of leak-prone pipe over inexpensive, timely repair. Do you agree? No. I don't agree. And you have to look at this from a life cycle perspective. Fixing an individual leak about an average cost of about $6,000 a leak for repair, right? Replacing a mile of main costs about $3 million. To replace that mile of main. If you look at cast iron, for example, has a joint every 12 feet. And where cast iron leaks, and you have a lot of cast iron, is at those joints. The joints are sealed when they were installed, some of them 100 years ago. They were sealed with rope or jute. And over time, the jute starts to shrink. It was moist when we installed it. It dries out, it leaves gaps, and the gas leaks out of them. So we have to, we put like what we call a muff around the outside of the joint. If it's larger cast iron mains, sometimes we use the robotic sealing. On Route 9 through Brookline and Newton, we did a lot of that work last year where we actually went inside the pipe and we sealed it from the inside. But it's in all instances, if you look at this as the potential for every joint on that mile of pipe to leak, and ultimately they will, it's not just that one $6,000 leak that we're fixing. It's if I had like, you know, and I just picked like an average job I had where we replaced 1.6 miles of pipe. If we sealed every joint along that pipe, it would cost about $4.2 million. If we replaced 1.6 miles of pipe, it would cost $4.8 million. So it costs a little bit more to replace the pipe rather than just repair it. But the key thing to keep in mind is when we fix leaks, we reduce emissions, but we do not remove the risk of the pipe associated with the pipe. With the cast iron, even we can fix leaks. What happens, and it's completely unpredictable, is cast iron can break. And it usually breaks in the middle of winter, which leaves customers without gas and could potentially create safety issues as the gas escapes or could migrate into people's homes. And so we really want to get it out of service. Just sealing those joints over and over and over again does nothing to reduce safety risk in your city. And we are also responsible, we're responsible for reducing emissions, but we're also responsible for reducing risk. And by replacing pipe, we can address both issues. And again, in the future, we're going to be talking about retiring pipe, and we're going to be talking about what we're going to replace it with. But the key thing is it needs to be taken out of service. Repair over and over and over again on pipe. You know, it's like when you have an old car, you can just keep fixing it, but eventually, right, it's not safe to drive. And this pipe is in that sort of condition.
Can you continue? There was the question, there's a comment on the question. I'd like you to also.
Yes.
You have the
Yeah,
floor.
so is that the comment, an investigation by Newton residents found in 2022 that 125,000 was spent on repairing G3 SEI leaks was more effective in eliminating $23 million spent on replacing pipe. And my question to that is, if you can send me the details on specifically what that job is, I would be happy to take a closer look at what that was. And if we could validate your residents' research on that, and we'd like to go out and again, take a look at that location. Anytime somebody tells me that we fixed a leak, or then we still have gas reads, or replaced main and there's still gas reads, we would always go out and check that. So I just need a few more, I need details on location. I can't guess where it is.
Okay, we could send you the report.
Perfect. I'd be happy to read it. Thank you. And then there was a second comment on that question that, and I think it goes to that study as well. An initial review of the May 1st, 2024 GREC report indicates a similar experience in 2023. Can we move the method of eliminating leak repair to replacement? If not, why not? I think I addressed the repair versus replacement issue. But again, if there's something specific that they're referring to, I'd be more than happy to review it.
Okay. You want to go on to question 4?
I do. I'm just going to take a sip of water.
Yeah, take your time.
Thank you. All right, 4. Why is National Grid taking longer to repair SEIs leaks than regulations require? For example, there's a leak at 741 Sawmill Brook Parkway, was first to be repaired by October. That was first measured in October 2019 with a leak extent of 2,700 square feet. Regulations required the leak to be repaired by October 2022. It is still leaking as of March 31st, 2024, and then see the list of 34 attached leaks. All right, so this is, and this one, thank you for sending the leaks. So here's the situation, and it's very similar for all the other leaks. So I'm going to use the Sawmill Brook Road as an example. So in 2019, right, we went out, we measured the leak, and it was a grade 3 SEI. With all grade 3 leaks annually, we are required to go and recheck them. And as part of the recheck, we measure the leak extent again. In 2021, when we went out, the leak extent fell below the 2,000 feet. Then in 2023, when we checked it again, it went above the 2,000 square feet. The following year, it fell below 2,000 square feet. And this was going back and forth. So we are allowed to remove from the G3 SEI list any leak that on recheck where the leak extent shrinks. This is not unusual. Leak migration pattern can be affected by things like weather, construction activity around it. The other thing about G3 SEIs, they're usually not one leak that's causing the wider reads. It might be multiple leaks within the same area. And so to get to a point where we get no gas reads, it encompasses an area that creates a G3 SEI. We might have fixed one of those leaks. It might have become a grade 1, and that brought the leak extent down to below 2,000. So, and I acknowledge that this is not a great answer, right? It's not what you want to hear about it. The leaks are getting bigger, they're getting smaller, they're getting bigger. So I was concerned myself. I sent a crew out on Tuesday to Sawbrook Parkway, and I asked them to measure the leak extent. It was 2,400 square feet. So it is now a grade 3 SEI again. And the way the rules work is we can take the 2 years to repair it. However, because of the history of this leak, I've asked them if they can schedule it soon for repair. So they have committed, the field ops folks have committed to actually eliminate that leak this year. It will be repaired, and apologize for it coming on and off the list. It's just kind of the way the fallout of the calculation goes. I can give you the history for every leak on that list, but the reality is none of them are overdue, because at some point in time, I think with the exception of 2 that were repaired, they were all downgraded because their leak extents shrunk to under 2,000 feet. And so rather than go through them all here on the meeting tonight, what I can do is we can send you the list with the explanation of what happened with each of the leaks and where the reads currently are. And some of those are back on the list of the 27 open leaks that you have now. None of the 27 are actually due for repair this year, but because you don't have any due for repair this year, what we're going to do is pull some forward that we could take until next year to repair, and we're going to repair them this year. And once we've got that final list ready, we can also let you know which leaks in particular we're going to be able to repair. If there's one or more of them in particular that is of concern to you from that list, let us know, and we can work with you to make sure that we're scheduling the work and applying for the permits in a fashion that gets those leaks repaired for you.
Very much, Ms. Smith. It is getting to be 10 o'clock. We have
Yes.
the last question.
Yes. Okay, so the last question, I think it's question 5 here, is many of the large leaks in Newton are not large enough to qualify as G3 SEI. Is there anything preventing us from repairing those leaks? The only thing that's preventing us is we have a lot of other work that has compliance deadlines, again, in Newton and also in the other cities and towns in which we operate. And those leaks, again, we recheck them every year. If they get larger, we put them on the G3 SEI list and we schedule them for repair. Sometimes when we recheck them, they become a grade 1 or a grade 2 and they will get repaired. But really, it's a matter of us being able to balance all of the safety and compliance and reliability work that we have with work that is not yet due for repair. And so it's just a matter of balancing workload.
Okay.
But understand your concern.
Thank you very much. Are there any clarifying questions from the committee? Okay, Ms. Smith, thank you very much. We appreciate you and your colleagues coming to talk to us today and go and explain and respond to our questions. We will probably entertain a motion to hold this item. There's a motion to hold. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion is held. So thank you very much. Have a good evening. I think the rain stopped now.
Thank God. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have one last item. It's just a reappointment of Michael Gelber to Newton Citizens Commission on Energy, and this is President Laredo reappointing Michael is it Gebelbar or Gebelbar?
Elber.
Givelberg.
Elber.
Gebelber, okay. 166 Melrose Street, Auburndale.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Lenny.
Okay, motion to approve, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's the end of our business this evening. We are adjourned.
Good night,
Thank you
all.
very much. Have a good night.
Yeah.